should put batteries in it.
I should. Well, I don't know. I keep forgetting to turn it off every week. So
Maybe you should start turning it off.
day in, day out, this poor mouse is working like crazy. So, but it's Thursday, which means it's THP time,
Whoop, whoop.
which means it's episode 170 of the Herpetoculture Podcast, which is brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com. I'm gonna move Dawn here in the middle there because Jake's so small and he fits in frame a little better under there. He's just hiding out.
Yeah, I just hide over in the shadows where I belong.
Yeah. BlackBoxCages.com. Check them out. Facebook, Instagram. And then Steve Sanctuary's Venom Hot Sauce. Check them out. Check Steve out. He's got a whole line of awesome hot sauces that help him with his public education, public outreach, rehabilitation, relocation. He has his own collection that he uses to do all these things. So if you get the hot sauce from Steve Sanctuary, take your pick. There's a whole lineup of them. Get all of them. Collect them all.
Gotta catch them all.
Give them a shot. You're helping out a good dude.
Yep. Not only are you helping them out, they are awfully tasty. So you won't be disappointed. You're helping a good cause and got something nice and spicy to put in your mouth.
If you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah. You know, it's not for everybody. But...
Black box. So I have the Aki cage thing has been figured out. I'm getting a XT4, which I think is what I have the Jansen iron right now.
That's the 4x2x2, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
heck yeah.
That's going to be coming here soon. I'm going to do a video, like an unboxing video to sort of show off how they pack their stuff, which is actually really impressive. If anyone's seen Snakes and Stogies and they've seen Phil's video or pictures of how they packed his stuff, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's really nice. And like if once you order from them, because like that's everybody's thing is like, oh, shipping is so expensive. Once you get from them, you'll see why shipping is not cheap. For one, it's a huge piece of equipment. For two, they pack it better or just as good as anybody else in the industry. I would say they're some of the best packing out there. And their lead times are quick as hell. Quick as hell.
Approximately 2 weeks.
Fastest lead times in the biz, I believe. So
yeah,
you know.
So I'm excited. I'm gonna get the finally get the Akis upgraded and
yeah, I know you've been wanting to do that.
Moved
for a
in
while,
at some point.
So.
I mean, they still have some size, so I could hold off if I wanted to, but I'm gonna get the get this set up and gotta make a run for some more driftwood or something because now I got a bigger cage to fill out. So
yeah, is this going to be a forever cage for them? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Okay. It should be.
Are you getting it decked out with like a heat bulb and UVB?
It's gonna have it's gonna have two of the bulb mounts. Sockets.
Oh, okay.
And then it's gonna have UV. And my next hurdle is then gonna be, how do I make sure it doesn't heat up the Jansenite cage? Because I'm assuming I'm going to put that on the bottom and then do the Jansenite cage on top of that.
If you don't want it to affect it as much, I would probably put the Akis up top.
You think it'll? I mean, that's going to be a lot of dirt and stuff. I just wondered about the weight.
Yeah, I didn't.
They
think
are
about
stackable.
That. I didn't think about the heaviness of it.
So, or I guess worst case, I get a sheet of wood or something and put it between the two. Just to give it a buffer, like a thermal buffer.
I don't know. It probably won't be that much of a difference. Like all the heat is going to be going downward, so I don't think there's going to be. It'll definitely make a difference, but I doubt it'll be very.
It's mostly going to boil down to how much substrate I have in there. Because if I have more, then it's going to naturally buffer it. So I don't know, but we'll see. So I'm excited for that. This means that there's now the possibility, because once that 200 quart is open, that I'll have room for some Kims. Ooh, some baby Kims.
Oh, buddy boy.
But then that's it. Like I said before, Akis and Kims are as far as I want to go when it comes to monitors. So we'll leave it at that. Quick updates. Daytona is happening. It's coming up soon. I am, in fact, going.
Yep.
It is now finalized. It is happening. If you want to buy some Ladies Island corns, stop by Casey Cannon and Billy Hunt's table because they're going to be selling pretty much all of them. And a Dion's. There's one Dion's. So
Nice, man.
Snatch it up.
Yeah, I'm glad you're going. Speaking of that, remind me when we're finished. I need to talk to you about going up Thursday.
Okay. Yeah. We'll figure that out.
Yeah,
We'll
I might have it figured out. So I need to talk to you. So.
Word.
Yep.
Oh, but other than that, just waiting on some beards to shed so I can start popping and figuring out what my ratios are
you
with
got
that
some
clutch.
Lomas hatched out.
Got a really nice clutch of Lomas hatched out. Nice. Dude, those babies come out so damn big compared to the corns. They come out like twice the size of baby corn.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. Some of the other stuff I've seen, like your southeastern rats compared to some of your Texas stuff, man, it's insane. Like even within like Pituophis, like granted, I know a lot of the Texas pits get a lot bigger than
Pituophis are their own
like
thing.
Your San Diegos and stuff, but you see it as well too, because like with the Emery rats, those are
big. Those are too. Those are gonna be big babies.
Big babies. You know, like the babies that I got from Christian, huge. But like the southeastern stuff, Everglades, my DeKirts, yellows, those things were like tiny.
I think we talked about it on Monday though, because we were talking about how like the whole IJ and chondro egg thing, like when you had your eggs, it was a smaller snake, bigger eggs, smaller clutch. Yep. Mine was a bigger snake,
more eggs,
smaller eggs. Like,
yeah.
So I think it's a similar situation. I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, I mean you definitely see the difference. Like those animals that have the bigger babies have much fewer eggs because the eggs are so big. And then it's like Kankakee bull snakes versus your Texas bull snakes. Kankakees will have a boatload of eggs, but they're a lot smaller eggs versus like your Kleberg bulls. They'll have very few eggs, but they're huge. Like,
yeah, I mean those southern pine babies are ridiculous. Like,
yeah, but like the San Diego gophers and stuff, really small. Yeah. They're much smaller compared to the Klebergs. Like my Klebergs, I got them a couple weeks after they hatched, and they were bigger than my San Diegos who had been feeding for a couple months. Like I
believe it.
It's crazy, but it's just cool to look at those things. I mean,
the freaking southern I got from Tony is like, eating damn hoppers out of the egg.
Yeah,
like small adult mice.
Yeah, huge. She was a tank, dude.
Little Debbie.
Yep. Little Debbie.
She's got her hide box is a Christmas tree cake thing, Little Debbie. So her name just became Little Debbie because I was like, it's fitting. She just because it's ironic because she's really not that little for her age. So but anyways, this week we are joined by Mr. Don Cain of Ball or Nothing Pythons. What's up, buddy?
How we doing, guys?
Pretty good, man.
Good.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.
It's Thursday. I'm ready for the weekend.
Yeah, man. One more day.
Super busy day today. Felt good. Cranked out some shirts. Came home. Took a nap.
Yeah, I pretty much did the same. I cranked out some inspections this morning, working on a little MS4 list that we got at work, and came home, took a nap. Was in a bad mood when I woke up, and now we're rocking and rolling again. So, on the move, ready for Friday.
Here we are smoking cigarettes.
Look, I have a pack on me in case of emergencies if my vape dies. Tonight, my girl wanted my vape, so I left it home.
Is that what the kids call it these days?
Yeah, pretty much.
Can I borrow your vape?
Yep.
No.
Like I said, would you rather my truck smell like an ashtray every time we go around?
I don't really care. Cigarette smoke doesn't really bother me.
Tell me I'm blowing a douche fluid all the time, then you're gonna fuck with me.
He finally switches over.
Yeah,
then you're gonna shit about that.
Then
too.
You're gonna fuck with me about it's not one thing, it's another, man.
There's no winning.
There's no winning with you ever.
Are you drinking a Bang?
Yes, I am.
Oh God.
Blue Raz, but that wouldn't be my choice. I stopped somewhere with a limited selection.
Yeah.
You guys and your bangs.
Bang.
Yeah. I one of my buddies that works out a lot keeps telling me to knock it off. Apparently all the creatine's not good for you if you're as lazy as I am.
Oh man. It's all the caffeine isn't good for you.
Yeah, well, that's
either.
Probably it's a little heart disease. It's all right.
No, man.
No, it stops heart disease.
No, dude. It
makes your heart move faster.
That's the problem.
it kills the disease.
So I have a heart arrhythmia. Like I get an extra
He was
beat
a
every now
preemie.
and then. I wasn't a preemie, okay? It's a family thing. Me and my dad have it. But like if I have a little caffeine, it's okay. You know, kind of wake me up. I'll go throughout my day. But dude, if I cross that threshold of like too much caffeine, it's like I'm sick. Like I'm gonna throw up. My heart feels like it's gonna jump out of my freaking chest. Like I drank half of one of those bangs and I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah, that's
dude.
I can't drink them first thing in the morning. I can't do it. It'll give me anxiety if I just crack one of those things like right out the gate. Like after like 10 o'clock or something, then I can do it. But I know that that one of them is not going to kill you because I've got a couple of employees that drink like 3 or 4 a day, and it's like, oh god, that's definitely not good for you.
Actually, it would be this way. That guy
You got that solid 900 milligrams of caffeine a day, boy.
nah,
Hey,
man.
you know,
that's crazy. Yeah,
I think once you become adjusted to it, it's probably not the same. You know, like when they're talking about the maximum suggested, I think that's for
that's a
I think,
recommendation.
That's for
yeah,
beginners.
It's not a rule. That's a suggestion.
Yeah, nothing's good for you anyway.
Just like speed limits.
Yeah,
suggestion, an enforced suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm at the point where I'm physically dependent on these damn things.
You drink like 3 a day, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that I'm the same way. I'll like not quite feel a little off, and then crack one, and it's like, oh, that's what I was missing.
Yeah,
way better now.
You can feel it. That first sip just seeps into your bones, and you're like, everything's right in the world for just a fleeting second.
Yeah, I used to drink the Monsters like every day.
Those
like
are just a joke to me.
Every
now.
morning, I would grab a Monster and a pack of cigarettes, and that's what I did every day. And then like I started noticing a difference with like my heart rate on a regular basis, and I was like, yeah, I think I need to cut this out.
Nothing to do with the cigarettes.
After nothing else. I quit smoking cigarettes too. Okay, Jesus.
I lived in San Francisco when the energy drink craze kind of started. And before the people were talking about how much you're supposed to drink a day, and the Monster guys and the Red Bull guys, you'd see them around town. They're just give you a flat of them, just keep passing them out.
Yeah,
this can't be bad for you.
Get everyone hooked. That's how you do it.
It's the same thing as cigarettes, man. It's always cool until everybody starts dying. It's like, wow, maybe we shouldn't do this.
Yeah, I kind of do have a feeling that one day there's going to be those commercials like, if you consumed 1 or more bangs a day, like
you may be entitled to compensation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I'll be rich.
Hey, somebody will.
And then I'll need a kidney. So we'll go ahead and start planning for this ahead of time. If anybody's got a spare one, I'm probably going to need it.
If you or a loved one was diagnosed with kidney failure from drinking too many bangs.
Mesothelioma from Bang Energy.
We will find out.
Yeah. But anyways, let's jump into this bad boy. Don, if you want to tell us about yourself, give us the general intro, all the
deep
goods.
you want to go.
Yeah, that's up to you.
Right,
leave it up to y'all. You can go back or as frequent as you want.
You can be like, I'm just do with snakes, or you can be like, once upon a time.
When I was 4.
Yeah, we'll start. My reptile story starts a lot later than I was busy doing hunting and fishing and doing all kinds of other stuff as a kid. I could have cared less to play with snakes.
Not a bad thing.
Pay any attention to them. Yeah. When we lived in Missouri for a while, I really liked the green snakes out there. They were really cool but I never cared to interact with them or. And then once I left the house, I ended up moving to the Bay Area and obviously a lot less space there. Can't keep a whole bunch of things. And I grew up in a farm setting, so I was used to having livestock and chickens and dogs and all kinds of stuff around. And so when I moved to the city, I was like, what can I do here that let me get away with, and I started with chickens and, growing up on a farm, I was already done with chickens by the time I didn't want to, that was real short-lived.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's normally what you start with when you're on a farm. Like chickens are kind of like the
prerequisite.
You just start with those and then you move on to other things.
Like when you have a small yard and even if you can do a little cage outside or whatever, they just crap golf balls everywhere. And, they're terrible. They get into all your stuff and make a mess. And so I started messing around with other, I bred a lot of little finches and little hookbills and stuff like that. And got into sort of livestock production, but with color mutations with all the different species of quail. And I did that on a fairly large scale for 7 or 8 years before I ever paid any attention to snakes at all. And that was kind of by accident. A coworker of mine was on a job site, and the kid had left for college, and they had a little just regular BCI. They'd had 2 of them. One mysteriously died. They were in the same like little Cresty Exoterra at like yearling size, and so I assumed neglect, but I brought it home, and I was pretty interested. It was pretty cool. I was a little bit afraid of it at first, and my friend that kept snakes, he's kind of laughing at me. He's like, dude, just pick it up, And I didn't really like. I stayed that way for a year or so, and around the time I met my wife, I was getting tired of the flies with the birds. I was doing like for the freezer, like 1,200 quail a year, and then producing them and selling them locally for people. There's a lot of health benefits to the Coturnix quail eggs. And so obviously in the Bay Area where that sort of thing is very fashionable, I was honestly probably making about the same kind of money I do off of ball pythons. It's a little bit more intensive, as far as it's not like raising rats. I've always raised my own rats, and that's they do everything for you with the birds. Your mom, it's just a lot. There's the flies are part of it, and then you're constantly moving. Their life cycle is so rapid. It's in 8 weeks they're sexually mature and
crazy.
What? 8 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
They actually like I don't know why they're not more like popular as feeders. We're
definitely moving towards that.
They have if you check like James Marie Farms is like as Robbie Richard is the guy that owns it. He's kind of like the nerd of quail. And he has like down to different sizes of the Coturnix. So like I know button quail or something that a lot of colubrid people are interested in, but there's actually a dwarf Coturnix that he's bred that it's about twice the size of a button quail. So the chicks are probably pretty close to what I think a lot of people are looking for. And then they life cycle so fast that they are fairly cheap to raise, and it's the same kind of deal as rats. There's some the ammonia and stuff like that's a deal, but
they hatch in like 2 weeks, right? Like
it's 19 days. It's super quick, and when I was doing it, the equipment really sucked. If I would have known about reptile thermostats, my life would have been a lot better. Those little twisty, like gas-filled thermostats are just they change every incubation cycle, and so there's just a lot more moving parts to it. And
do those have to be rotated like chicken eggs do when you incubate them? They have the turner on in the.
Yep. Yeah. And then if so occasionally with quail, some will hatch early, like say it's just like snakes or anything else, but chickens don't seem to do it as much. But with quail, some will hatch early, and then you got these little things running around in the turners getting smashed. That can be a little bit of that can be a little crappy. But
God, I didn't even think about something like that happening. Holy shit,
that's
like
something
terrible.
out of Saw.
And then there's like a 2-stage, so like about 6 or 7 days before they're done, you're going to stop turning them. You're going to set and take. I would do 240 at a time, and so then you got to sit and take 240 eggs out and carefully place them on a paper towel and put them into another incubator that you keep at a different humidity. You want your humidity is around like 50% throughout the incubation cycle, and then when you get towards hatch, you want to raise the humidity up like 70-80%, but not go any farther than that. It's easy once you get it dialed, but it's got just a lot more moving parts than hatching snakes.
We've talked about it, and because I've been interested just in finding stuff to help take some pressure off the mice, like using the mice and trying to get the colony really going and filling more tubs.
Yep.
And that was at one point that was something that we had sort of considered was quail, ASFs, and I don't know. I'd like to do quail, but we have something that keeps getting into the mouse shed. I think it's either a possum or a raccoon, and they're so small. I don't know what the hell I could keep them in that would stop them from getting out when they're tiny, and then B, like keeping something else from getting to them.
Well,
and murdering them all.
Let me ask this, because I do have a garage now, Smitty.
You do have a garage.
I do have a
now.
garage now, but it gets awfully hot in there.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like,
they're not. The rats will tolerate more of a temperature range than they will.
okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, they're pretty temperature specific. Like where I live now, I couldn't raise them year round. I could only, or unless I did it in my rat room, which I really don't know why I don't. But if you there's a commercial racking system for them, kind of like Freedom Breeder ARS. It's called GQF, and those GQF stacks you can do like 150, 175 birds in like a 4-foot square floor plan. Yeah, so because they grow so fast and life cycle so fast,
right?
That,
they're not in there that long.
Yeah, I mean, and
so how long do they live? Like from like
2 years at most. Like if you like try to take it easy, be really careful, give them good food and everything, like 2 years max. And it's like chickens, you want to eat chickens by the time they're like 6 months old. Quail, that's the kind of the benefit is that at every point during their life they taste the same. So if you don't want to you don't they taste just as good to you as as they do to snakes. So it's not like rats where we just wouldn't consider eating them. That's the other problem that you're gonna have if you start raising quail. You're gonna be like, I'm gonna
you look pretty tasty and I'm broke.
Until there's nuclear war, and then we have to have a difficult conversation.
Okay, so let me ask you this: from hatching to like adulthood, I know you said they're sexually mature at what'd you say, 6 weeks?
About 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Yeah.
So at that 8-week period, how much do they grow between 8 weeks and 2 years? Like, is there a huge like size difference? So realistically, you could
8 weeks
take out breeders like every year or every 6 months or so, and have
And
theoretically every 6 weeks.
If you're doing the color mutation thing with them, it's the same sort of inheritance that we have, but a lot more polygenetic effect to the to messing with it, like crossing the mutations. You won't necessarily get like a 2 genes expressed like you do in ball pythons, but you'll get polygenic influence from the other mutation. And so you can, there's a lot of it's like carpet pythons. There's just a million directions you could take with every clutch kind of thing. But one thing that I learned is from them that you just can't learn any other way is the power of selection. I mean, it's you can control everything from temperament to like the eggs. You've seen the eggs, they're splotchy, like brown and tan kind of colored. You can control the pigment of the eggs. Like you can literally make them through selective breeding in like 6 generations, 5 generations. You can take eggs that are all mottled and make them just all tan.
Wow.
And vice versa.
Could you go? I was gonna say, could you go the opposite way, make them like all black or like really brown?
Yeah, it's they're pretty. It's pretty, and I mean they've been domesticated for like literally like 3,000 or 4,000 years. So it's the genes are. It's like ball pythons, kind of. They're really muddied up, and they lend themselves well to that sort of thing. Very flexible, but when I got done with birds and I kind of I had that one boa constrictor and I met my wife and she had a couple of ball pythons, and then we kind of fed off of each other and got a whole bunch of ball pythons and started breeding them.
So your wife was kind of more into the snakes than you were at the
definitely. Cool. And she was substantially more interested, and I had never even seen a ball python. I had no idea, but having just come off of with the quail, I had a sort of a unique look that I was able to reproduce that kind of was my own. And in one night, a raccoon ate like 20 some odd birds of that project, and basically the entire like family, like the control groups. And I couldn't. What I had left in like the filial generations, the genes were so scattered, it was going to be like another 5 years to get back to where I was at. And I'm like, dude, I'm done with this. And around that time, that's when she introduced me to the ball pythons, and I was like, oh, this is easy. And I was living in an area where everybody had them, and it was easy to get kind of decent stuff.
So it was time to change gears, eh?
Yeah, and then about 3 or 4 years ago, all the stickers and the T-shirts and everybody was a ball python breeder with like 2 or 3 clutches, and I'm like, man, I'm looking for the next boat to jump on here, because this is not that much fun anymore. And over time I kind of got over that, and I love my ball pythons, but they enable me to keep all of the other cool stuff that I keep, and that's kind of what it's become.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that's kind of like Kendra and
Very
Jeff.
similar to Jeff and Kendra.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what they do. They have ball pythons. I know Kendra was really more into the ball python section.
Kendra was more into snakes, period.
Yeah,
though.
we've been
was she?
following each other on Instagram
Okay.
for
Yeah.
probably since like 2015
Yeah.
or something. And I remember when it was they just had ball pythons.
Yeah,
and that's, I mean, that's what a lot of us, I think, were that way and have kind of shifted over time.
That's cool, man.
Well, that's always interesting though, because I like to get, and I mean, we'll talk about it here in a few, but like that's one of the things about guys like yourself and Jeff and Kendra, where like they've been in sort of both camps of like the ball python thing, and then they've had stuff outside of that, and like what's it? I mean, I've never been really involved in the ball community at all. Like,
but
I've had a couple over the years. That's about it. Like,
but
I don't pay attention to it. I'm super not hip to a lot of the morphs. Like, I recognize like some when I see them, but for the most part, I'm like, I have no idea what that is. So,
but with you kind of followed a similar route with Palmetto Coast, because like when you first got started, you were kind of a crested gecko guy. And you use that to kind of fund all the rest of your projects. So, it's really not that far off as far as like the business aspect of it, but a different species, but kind of the same route. So
what's your current collection though, in terms of ratio of balls to everything else, and sort of what you got going on?
I don't really count the babies that come and go. I do about 100 hatchlings a year, give or take, with the ball pythons. It's just I try to not do more than that. I can hit 150 or so if I try, and I've come close to that, and it's not a whole lot of fun. I'm pretty busy otherwise, and so without the babies, I probably have about 60 to 70 ball pythons. It's probably not a very good count on my whole back rack, but less than 80 ball pythons, we'll say that for sure. And then and I keep them in a totally separate room because I keep a lot of so my other my cold room is where I have I keep a few rattlesnakes, not a whole bunch, but I keep a couple Northern Pacifics and a speck and a diamondback, and then got a lot of different king snakes, pair of alterna, a little bit of everything, some Mexican black kings and a pair of hognose, stuff like that. But I really like the kind of the obscure pythons and boas. I really haven't gone anywhere past carpet pythons on that note, but I've got a whole bunch of BCI stuff and a few Morelia, a lot of sky, like I've random pine snake and just a little bit of everything.
Nice.
Amazon tree boas.
I was gonna say I saw some Amazons. I saw like a freaking smoking corn that looked like a ghost of some sort.
Yeah, I've got a few. I kind of bought a lot of like colubrid, or started a lot of projects. The corn snakes I'm really unfocused with. I got to kind of refine that, but like I've got like a anery diffused. I had a couple palmettos. The male just rolled over the other day for no reason.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it does. And at least I traded for him. I didn't pay for him. But my female palmetto actually comes from a wild, like an outcross pairing. So
cool.
that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
She's her I think it was her grandfather was wild caught. So, and then I've got like just a reverse Okidi to kind of hand to people at shows, and the perfect pet corn snake.
Yeah.
Like I think I got a caramel tessera. What else? Yeah, I really like that caramel tessera. Like every shed, he gets brighter. I mean, it's comparable to like ball python colors, man. I mean, it's really impressive.
I love corns, like just watching them grow, man. I think they're a lot like poplin carpets in that way of like, and in carpets in general, with each shed, they just get better and better and better. Like carpets and corns, man. They just they're so fun to watch, like grow.
My first carpet was a caramel coastal.
There you go.
And I had no idea what it was going to look like as an adult, and every shed I was like, wow,
look at this.
Yeah. Now I've got a couple of jungles. I'm kind of like young ones that I'm in there checking on. Did you guys shed yet?
Yeah. Man, that is like one of the things though that I do. That seems to be sort of a common running theme with a lot of the stuff that we keep, is like it starts out as like the ugly duckling and then morphs into like Whereas it seems like with ball pythons, and I'm sure there's a couple morphs that are probably the exception, but it seems like they start out bright and then over time they sort of fade out some, like it desaturates almost.
Yeah, like I posted a couple of like super pastel, black pastel combos the other day, and they look just smoking as babies. And if you don't see a million ball pythons, they look really cool as adults too. But as babies, they're white and gray, and they have like a nice contrast to their pattern and stuff. And then half of the pattern fades out, but it doesn't turn white. It turns kind of a mediocre gray color, and they're all the white goes away. They're kind of like a yellowy, almost a wild type, but a little more yellow on the sides and stuff. And it just they're great. They make great show snakes. They look great in an enclosure, but as adults, they don't look so hot. That's why the recessive stuff's a little better like that. Yeah, there you go. One of those.
Those are nice.
Yeah, the Coral Glow one on the right will stay a little nicer looking, because Coral Glow is basically like a hypo mutation. I would say T positive, but I know Travis hates that.
Travis is our boy.
I use both terms with the Bairds, and he's like, yeah, it's the same thing, whatever.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, we, he's it's good that we have him, and in the in the bird world, they don't have a Travis over there, and it's kind of the Wild West as far as how they call out the genes and such like. And to a degree, I mean, like when I got into ball pythons, I'm like, what is a codon? Like, I don't...
yeah. What's that?
Yeah, like, oh, incomplete dominant. Oh, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, I was about to say, be careful with that word codominant.
Oh man, I can't.
You'll ruffle some feathers with that one.
It doesn't bother me. Like, I don't correct people, but I don't use it.
I don't care.
People know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like the Popwin IJ thing. It's like,
yeah,
you can say IJ. We know what you're talking about.
That's the thing, man. Like with codom and incomplete, it's funny because I treat codom and incomplete the same way I keep Popwins and IJs. Like if I'm talking to somebody and they're referring to them as IJs, I will also refer to them as IJs because I don't care. But if I'm talking to somebody, I prefer Popwin.
It's like gender pronouns.
If somebody uses Popwin or West Popwin, I'll kind of go with that. I don't care. We all know what we're talking about. The whole incomplete and codom thing. Hairs. It's like, again, you're splitting hairs. I learned it as codominant. Like when I was coming up into morphs, and I was into ball python a little bit, and I was learning about everything. Codominant was the term. Incomplete dominant was like more of the technical thing, but nobody really cared about that. Now it's incomplete dominant, and then codominant is not really the accepted, and it's like,
every once in a while, somebody that's had snakes for a couple of years will correct me when I call a BCI a red tail, and it's like, well, 10 years ago people weren't so picky about it.
I mean, now they're
just red tails.
Now they're just BIs, which
exactly.
To me is odd. Like it's always been BCI to me, and so like to call them like BIs, it's, I don't know, it's just it feels weird. Yeah,
we have the ever shifting nomenclature that but
it's always changing, man.
We all do kind of generally speak the same language. So
for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. And I mean, it's not bad to be, on either side of it, but like I personally think that like, don't be a stickler about it.
Yeah,
like, don't be annoying. Use the terms that you're comfortable with and that you agree with, but like if somebody uses something else, like
it's like the poisonous venomous thing. When I hear someone that's not into snakes call something poisonous, I don't even bother correcting. It's like, I know what you mean.
I don't correct them.
They're not going to care either way what it is.
With that one, the only thing I do with that is if somebody says poisonous, and I'll be like, yeah, so venomous snakes are XYZ, and it's like, I don't say, hey, it's not poisonous, it's venomous. I just use venomous instead of poisonous. That one's a little different from the codom and the incomplete dominant. But
if you want to make a sale at a reptile show, you're not going to start a conversation with no, it's not codom.
Whoa, back it up, homeboy. Like no, that's
it's not something I correct people over, but I just try to it's just try to kind of lead by example.
So has it shifted though to where you initially started with ball pythons and now you've sort of ventured into some other stuff? Is it sort of, I guess we touched on it a few minutes ago, but like how Jeff and Kendra are doing it, where they still have their ball python projects and it's stuff they like.
And
like
they're
not
awesome.
they're not just randomly breeding ball pythons because it pays the bills. Like it helps fund their other stuff, but they're still enjoying it. Like they still like
love
animals.
their animals. Yeah.
Has it become pretty much a
lot of my
for
a lot of my projects I've had going for 5 or more years, and so you get attached to them, and you're like you can't like. It's not like carpets where you can refine a look and kind of excel with one gene. I use pastel, Enchi, and GHI together as a base for a lot of things, and so every year I'm able to typically add another gene into that project, and it's not their show like value snakes, which doesn't bother me at all. I make plenty of money providing people with mostly their first pet and like new breeders with stuff that's coming up. I don't need to be the guy I have some cool recessive stuff, and in years, in the future, it's gonna pay off a little more than it does now. But it's more like I go to shows really just to interact with the people, and like I said, just hook them up with their first pet, and then provide lifetime tech support on it, so maybe we do get a real reptile keeper out of it and not just somebody that takes it home and sticks it in a tank and drops it off at the store in 6 months or a year or whatever.
I mean, dude, you're talking to two guys who are most passionate about like $100 to $200 snakes. Like
that's
I mean, totally understand that. Well, you and
some of us are more
you
refined.
and your cadres while I sip my fucking wine.
Yeah, I've got a lot of double recessive projects kind of started, or like I've got like the dreamsicle stuff that everybody likes, those orange pieds. I've got a project like a male and a few females for that project that I'm growing up, and then I've for a few years now, or a couple of years, I've been producing VPI xanthic albinos, so VPI snows, and they're a pretty cool snake. A lot of people at the time when that pairing was first going down a lot, it was early on, and they were trying to make a white snake that they're trying to make a bell basically, and they come out mostly white. There's a shadowing of albino pattern on them, but then over time any pattern they have turns to like a pretty intense yellow. And so I like them for that. When you start adding other pattern mutations in there, like pinstripe, you just get some insane looks out of it. But initially what they were going for, that mutation kind of whiffed, or that combo kind of whiffed, and it's probably one of the least valuable recessive combos today, but it's still something that I like to play around with. And then I kind of this year started some new double recessive projects, genetic striped clown and hypo clown.
Is recessive sort of where things are in terms of like what everyone's sort of working with and focusing on? Like that's one of the
gone
things
that way.
Sort of the codom stuff is like, I can see why some things and some morphs would be completely surpassed, because it's like, well, I have this that's in complete dominant. I don't have to wait another, an entire other season or 4 years, 2 seasons, whatever. I can just get results right now. So it's kind of surprising to hear that recessives are kind of the
out of just random luck, the recessive combos tend to age better, and most recessive genes age pretty good compared to codom stuff. And so what happens is when you get like if you put 5 genes in a snake that has banana, you have a yellow snake, and it won't look like that as a baby maybe, but it's going to look like that as an adult. And it's just it's really easy with codom stuff to add one too many and just like take 5 steps back, even if you know what's in there. Like, I traded somebody for a snake a couple of years ago. They were a newer breeder, and I bought their ID. It looks good to me. I mean, I'm actually breeding that male this year, and I'm sure it is what they say it is. But I can make that judgment from experience. When they're trying to sell it at their first reptile show, people are like, I'm not paying that kind of money for that thing. Like, so I got obviously a smoking deal on it because they couldn't really identify it. And, you can get a few $100, $500 tops maybe out of something that you can't ID, but unless you're nerd and you've built you built your brand to that point where people are buying the brand, you just can't. Nobody's going to pay me for a snake that's going to turn yellow, unless it's in that pet kind of price range. And so it's surprisingly, like, the recessive genes have been around the longest, most of them. So I don't know why the craze kind of just started in the last 5 years. I guess just because Justin, Canova started doing all this stuff. Him and Ozzy and a couple of the big guys were making double, triple recessives, and yeah, it was a logical progression, but yeah, it's definitely been a shift over like 2015 to 2017. Say it was just all Kodam stuff. And
well, with that all said, so you've been in the ball python game,
yeah,
about how long roughly?
about 8 years now.
About 8 years. So in that time frame, like, how have you seen the ball python sector of things progress? Because when I was first getting into the hobby, Mojaves and albinos and some of those simple incomplete
What are now
dominant,
base?
those base
Yeah.
morphs were still $200, $300, $400. Like when
Yep.
I first
Probably
got
more
into
than that.
things, an albino was $500. So it's like, how have you in the last 8 years? I know it's been a little longer than 8 years since an albino was $400. So in those 8 years, how have you seen things like progress with the morphs and
It's a weird market because partially it is just a supply and demand market, and so you'll
Right.
see it goes up and down in sort of a like within a range. And I've seen that happen like whereas like right now an albino's $250.
Right.
And all it takes is Canova to hit some cool combo with an albino, and it'll drive the price up to 400 for the next, first part of the next season or whatever.
But see,
And
I can understand that because of the combo aspect of it, but I'm talking like a straight albino,
well, and that's what I mean.
no
Like,
heads, no nothing,
the price of one gene can just get driven up by it being in like when Justin hit the Pompeii, and Chris on Snakes
Those
and
are
Fat Man
very
talks
cool.
about this all the time. Yeah, it was such a cool snake. It was so different than everything like black pastel, which is required, the price shot up, and it was just, overly inflated essentially. I mean, everybody
Right.
that had a black pastel was throwing it out there for $200 more than it was worth or whatever, just because you had to have it to get into that combo. And so that's kind of always gone on, but it's what I've kind of seen since I got in was just a kind of a natural price adjustment. It was riding a little bit of a wave. I mean, it's a strong market, but it wasn't what the $5,000 Kodam combinations. I just when I first started, that was just unreal to me. There's no way I was going to pay that when I can make it in 3 years. It's not like a recessive gene where like some of these projects I've started this year, like if I want to get anywhere in them, I've got to buy $4,000 or $5,000 male in the next couple of years. And that's why those snakes sell, the higher end snakes sell, but I'm kind of content with it the way it is, and so I kind of only just pursue the projects that I really enjoy.
Yeah. And that's really where you need to stay, man. I mean, that's how you stay excited about the hobby, and that's how you really stay in it. Because if you start working towards things just for money, you're going to lose the interest.
Yeah,
Like,
and I see it at shows all the time. Like you see guys that are there just to make money on, and it's always on ball pythons. And honestly, I've seen a little resurgence of it with crested geckos lately. There's been more cresty breeders at the shows and stuff, but you really do. Like so I actually have somebody that comes and helps take care of snakes on the weekend with me, and just I've got a lot of snakes, and I'd like to get through it. The all of my spot cleaning and water replacements on Saturdays, and then that way during the week I just got to go and double check spot cleaning, check for eggs, and do waters once a week. But I got to a point before I got someone to come help me where I was just sick of the ball pythons, because the money isn't so much that it's profitable, but it wasn't so much that it was at a point kind of worth the stress of how many babies I was having to feed and just all the cages to clean by myself. And part of that, what helped with that was just diversifying my collection and getting more cool stuff that did interesting things. I got a whole room that full of snakes that you walk in, and there might be 12 of them moving, but they're not doing anything cool, I walk in the back room and there's a diamondback or a colubrids coming straight out to, see, hey, dude, you can feed me. What's up? What are you doing? Something's hanging off a branch, or to see a little more, behavior. And it just kind of, it definitely re-energized me with the ball pythons. And then honestly, and I say this for anybody that's got a big collection, if you can afford a little bit of help, it doesn't cost me very much money. It's totally worth it. And you're teaching somebody that's going to go out and teach more people. And it's been worth every bit of it.
Nice, man.
It's awesome. Yeah. That is the interesting thing with the ball python community market, whatever you want to call it, that I don't really see in other pockets of things, except for maybe boas, is like you have like the handful of I'll call them trendsetters, I guess. You know, the Kabilkas and those other guys who produce these things, and they set sort of that new temporary standard. And I don't know. I don't see that in carpets or other sort of aspects of species that are kept. Maybe corns, but even then, I feel like most of the time people are like, yeah, that's cool, but you don't have people that are lined up to go and buy the that very line or more for animals to make it. They're just.
I
like,
would
yeah, that's
disagree
cool.
when it comes to corns. Carpets, one thing, but corns, I think they're about on the same level as ball pythons, if you ask me.
I just mean in terms of like that. Like, I don't see people looking and seeing this, like, maybe I'm just not seeing it. I could be wrong, but like Don Soderbergh, with SMR, I don't see him producing something new and then everyone like lining up at the door.
Yeah.
I look at it like with the palmettos. The palmettos, everybody was lining up to get palmettos.
The scaleless, yeah,
you
but
know,
those are like
like
exceptions. It's not like a regular thing. Like,
well, yeah.
So
But I think that's
part
because
of
they're
it,
also cheap snakes.
part of it, I think, is visibility. Ball python, most of the ball python breeders that are doing things right now, and most of the people that are paying attention to that are so from the social media era, and it's right in front of them. I seek out corn snake people, but like there's not a lot of really popping corn snake accounts on Instagram,
Yeah.
And so part of it is just, I think, the generation. Like a guy who I do shows with, who's kind of my mentor. He's bred everything over the years. He still dabbles in ball pythons, but he's mostly a colubrid guy. And he posted on social media a couple of times back in the day, and people kind of did what people do on Facebook, and he's like, all right, well, I'm done with this. And like 10, 12 years ago, and he hasn't posted another thing at all. And so if you don't see him at a show, you don't see it.
Right.
And so I think a lot of the corn snake world is still, a lot of the guys are still from that era. And as like JT's, his Instagram's always there's always something cool to look at there. I think there's I kind of see, I think everybody's seen the popularity of corn snakes coming back. I bought 7 or 8 of them in the last couple of years. But it's I think it's coming back. They're coming back on it might be slowly, but on a bigger level. We're doing pretty cool stuff with them. So
yeah, there's a ton of stuff going on with corn snakes, and I hate to compare them to like the ball python sector of, the hobby. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think like corn snakes haven't jumped as much solely because they're relatively cheaper than
the paywall.
The ball
that's
python,
something Chris and I talked about, is the paywall is much shorter on corn snakes. Like, you want to get top tier corn snake stuff, you're looking at like maybe $400, like
yeah,
$500
and that's the thing.
max.
Like an expensive corn snake is $400 to
like a
$700, like max.
Ball,
Like but a ball python, like you're talking, that's in the $3,000 to $5,000 range.
To give you that male palmetto that I had that just died recently, I traded 2 albino ball pythons for him. So
there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's funny because I immediately was kind of drawn to the palmetto mutation. And then I'm looking at it now after I've spent a good amount of time looking around, and I'm like, so this is it, kind of. So we can change the color of the spots, and that's what we can do.
Yeah,
we can get a couple more of them.
And you're rolling the dice on trying to add more pattern, or if somebody can crack the code and get more pattern into them, then I think it'll blow up a little more. But I see the palmetto kind of being what the blue-eyed leucistic is for ball pythons, that entry point for people.
Exactly.
Like our shows in California are a little bit skewed because people tend to have whether they actually have the money or not, people tend to have some pocket money to spend at the shows. And so like palmettos out here are going for like 600 at shows, and they're getting it pretty regularly. So I mean, it's kind of and we do the same thing with the blue-eyed leucistics. They everybody walks around, they're like, oh, is it 500 a day or 400?
There's just something about a white snake, man.
And it's
that will never not be popular. And you ask a lot of the corn breeders, like snows are always there's, like we just talked with Eric Westmoreland. He's like, I can't keep snows on my tables. He's like, people want snows, like that's going crazy. Like white snakes, for some reason, people want them.
And I get it to an extent. White snakes are cool or whatever, but like that whole aspect, like me, I'm more of a ground tone guy, so I like the darker colors. I like grays and
it's tough
blacks, and so like I don't really get that aspect of it. But like for me, when it comes to ball pythons versus corns, it's hard to wrap my head around the price differences because like ever since switching from I didn't switch, but from keeping more carpets than anything, you know, to keeping more colubrids than anything, colubrids are a lot more expensive to upkeep. You know what I mean? Like they eat a lot more. Granted, yes, they eat smaller items, but they eat a lot. You know, you have to keep them rolling. They shit a lot more. So it's like there's a lot more that goes into the colubrids, but yet they're so much cheaper than your ball pythons. And like I don't really understand that aspect to it. But you know, I'm not in this for money. You know, I just like my snakes. I keep more less than $100 snakes than anything else, you know, so that's just me because I enjoy them. But you know, there's so much more that goes into them, you know. It's kind of wild.
I have probably 35 colubrids, and it's like substantially more work than feeding the ball python.
Much more. Much more.
And I'm on the sort of the, I don't, you know, some people call it old school. Some people say we just came up with it, but I don't feed my pythons and boas anywhere near as much as most of the hobby does. Like you will not see an obese ball python in my room. If so, it's an accident, and it was just, you know, she just converted food too well that season, and I just need to back off. You know, so I basically don't, nothing in my ball python room. The babies get fed about every 7 days. And that's like a lot of times it's 10 once they've had 3 meals. And then with the adults, it's 2 weeks at best. And I also, on top of that, kind of cycle feed to same kind of way Ben Russo, you know, does. I don't, I do it when it's convenient for me, but I create spring by just, you know, making a food drought and then for 4 weeks in a row. And this is where I wish a lot of ball python breeders would grasp this, like as far as weight goes, like for 4 weeks or maybe 6 weeks in a row at most, I feed once a week. And the rest of the year, that snake only eats at most every 2 weeks. But just doing that flips the switch, and they'll go for you if they're going to go. And it also, you know, a lot of people like to breed ball pythons all throughout the year. I like to have a couple clutches kind of come in here and there, but for the most part, I want to get it all out of the way when the weather's. We have a section of the year where it's just too hot to be outside during the day much, and so I want to get all of the baby maintenance out of the way when I'm stuck inside in the air conditioning already.
You know, I never really thought about it like that, but that makes perfect sense, you know, like during your summer months, because you know that's a big thing with corn snakes is like, you know, guys who keep an extensive amount of corn snakes like VMS, you know, they have 2 different, you know, sections of breeding, you know, but that's because they have, you know, indoor cooling, you know, like it's year-round production, you know. But I never really thought about, you know, during the hotter months, that's when you want to be taking care of your babies because it's hot and there's nothing really else to do. So you can go take care of your animals. And
so I also, for food availability, it works easier in the, like lately I've had a swamp cooler go out recently. So my rat production went down quite a bit. It wasn't so great, but normally it's easier for me to produce at max volume during the warmer months because I can cool the room to a more sustainable temperature than, you know, what I can heat it to without spending an arm and a leg in the wintertime. So my wintertime, my production drops to like probably like 60-70%. And that works out anyway because I cut off feeding a lot of stuff. I even though I haven't, I only breed ball pythons, and I've got next year I'll be able to breed king snakes, cow kings, but I still put down most of my colubrids for the wintertime because why not? You know, and it just that way it's food available. You know, it just makes my rodent breed. Rodents are the hardest part about. You know,
I like last year when I was cooling everything down, I was like, this is perfect. I can start loading up, and I didn't plan enough. Like I didn't plan to load up on, you know, older mice to feed the adults when I bring them out of cooling. Like, so this time, like this year when things start going down, I'm definitely going to be more, try to plan ahead better than what I did. Cause that is like the perfect opportunity to really get the freezer full. And, you know, it was frustrating because I was like, why did I not, I loaded up on pinkies and smaller stuff
for the babies.
Yeah. But I did not load up on the older stuff for the older animals.
Yeah, and I made the mistake a couple of years. I let up. I had my freezer filled up, and I was like, I'll just kind of back off. And I did it at the wrong time of year. And then, you guys know what it's like when you have this many snakes to go buy them. it's not pleasant.
No. My last Rodent Pro order was about $900.
Yep.
So yeah, that
last
was
you about a month.
That was a kick in the nards for sure. Everybody in our group, everybody was sending like $200 to $400 rodent bills. They're like, oh fuck, and I'm like, dude, that's. Woo,
I can't imagine.
I wish.
I listened to Colubrid Radio today, the recent episode,
I want to listen to that tomorrow.
Matt was saying that he has like 700 pinkies and fuzzies defrosted in his, or maybe it's 500, but that's $700-800 worth of pinkies and fuzzies in your kitchen all at one time, and if you're doing that even every 2 weeks, that hurts.
Golly.
I had my racks flooded out when I first moved up to this area. I was stupidly using a float and a hose, and of course it managed to flood every rack. And I not only created a small invasive rat population that I had to deal with, I killed most everything else, and it was just devastatingly expensive, not to replace the rats, but to feed. It was right in the middle of, I was maybe 2-3 months away from most snakes cycling, and so I was like, got to keep feeding, and all my rats are gone.
Yeah.
And so that was 1 week I spent like $800 or $900. Because that's the other thing about pythons and boas, right? Is you're not buying pinkies for long. You don't like, I start my ball pythons out on like a chunky rat fuzzy.
Right.
And so it's, the food bill goes up quick that way. But like you were saying earlier, I feed that other room. It seems like way more money than I feed my ball python room.
Yeah.
At least way more frequency.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Now I'll tell you, man. So one thing I did with my last order is like I added up a lot of prices for stuff, like what's eating medium rats versus, the jumbo mice. And after doing a little bit of math and looking into the prices of everything, 2 extra large mice is cheaper than 1 medium rat. So a lot of the stuff that I would, and then with that, large quail are also cheaper than a medium rat. So a lot of the colubrids that were eating the medium rats got switched. Yeah, Rico. Yeah, he only eats 1, but my Pituophis that are big, they needed that medium rat sized, animal. They get 2 extra large mice instead of a medium rat because it's only a couple cents cheaper. Like it's less than $1 cheaper for 2 extra large mice versus a medium rat. But that little bit goes a very long way when you're feeding several snakes, So I really tried to add up, my cost. Like all my carpets that were on medium rats got switched to large quail because it's that, 30-50 cents cheaper, economical. And that's it. That little bit goes a long way when you're doing this type of stuff. The stuff now, the only stuff that eats rats for me is stuff that will only eat rats, which is one animal. She doesn't want anything but rats, which is fine. So I got medium rats just for her, but everything else got switched to either 2 extra large mice or a quail. And
it's easy when you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
That does make life a lot easier. The guys who I don't envy food bill wise are the people doing a lot of Pituophis on any kind of a big scale, because like I have one like 6-foot northern pine snake, and he'll eat 2 medium rats in a week, and you can't see the the bumps, and like he doesn't. He's a food machine,
dude.
And it's even like really big California king snakes get to where they process food really quickly, but nothing like that. Like a pit, man. They're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta wonder how much they eat in the wild, especially like the bigger stuff, like the northerns and the southerns, and
that's why with like the big stuff, I'm trying to like keep it to a minimum. Like I love my Pituophis. If I could have a room full of Pituophis, I would, but they eat so much that it's like I can't really do that. All my adults are most of my adults luckily take mice, so they're all getting 2 frozen thawed extra large mice in a sitting once a week, which sustains them. A lot of people are feeding like these super big items, and Pituophis are burrow invaders. Like they'll go into a nest and eat everything in sight, but the size of a quarter, like it's
They're
small
eating
stuff.
25 fuzzies.
Exactly.
So,
So, those multiple smaller items do really well for, pits, but it's also still a lot of food,
There's an area where we herp for them, or a couple areas around, and I live in a unique spot because I'm at the top of like a very large valley that basically takes up the whole middle of California. But I have a different mountain ranges within a hour drive either direction or half-hour drive. And alongside one of those mountain ranges in the foothills, there's a lot of California kangaroo rats. The population's really big. And over there, the gopher snakes, they get pretty big. I mean, like I've seen, I haven't actually, I never find decent sized ones alive, but I've seen some DORs that could easily eat a ground squirrel.
Wow.
And for Pacific gophers, like 5-6 feet, say I've never seen a 6-footer. A lot of people have, shown me ones that they say are, but like I do for my county, I'm kind of for the county wildlife rescue, I'm the snake relocation guy, and I do rattlesnake relocations whenever I have time. But being the snake guy, you get and my name's numbers all over Facebook, you get pictures sent to you. And somebody sent me a picture of a gopher snake a couple of years ago that had clearly eaten 6 full-size chicken eggs in one sitting. Yeah, and you could count every one of them going down it. It was great. But yeah, when they get to when they get really big, I'm sure they're eating like that, whatever they can fit down. But like where I was herping in the Great Basin a couple of weeks ago, and substantially smaller prey size, substantially smaller pits. I actually I started a little locality project from the gophers over there because there's an not a small intergrade range, but there's a kind of a neat intergrade range between the Great Basins and the Pacifics, and I found a nice little, very tame, stable little female neonate that I brought home this last time. So
very nice.
I gotta get a permit before I get a male in case Fish and Wildlife's watching. Out here, they're present all the time. It's probably been 6 months now, but they raided somebody at a show recently. They do undercover. Like the guy was going around the day before. I talked to him. I didn't have anything illegal to sell, so I was just fine. But he was dressed like a basketball player that just got out of the gym one day, and he came back in a bulletproof vest the next day. So
man,
yeah,
holy shit.
Gotcha,
yeah,
bitch.
they seized a whole bunch of the guy had some really cool diamondback stuff, some patternless, and some bubblegum and het bubblegum stuff, and unfortunately lost all that.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds like
Billy,
Florida's cracking down on Daytona this year.
Because Billy Hunt, our buddy, was talking about how like Fish and Wildlife will go in there, and if you don't have a list of kind of proving that these are your animals, you produce them, or where they came from, whatever, like if you don't have proof that they are yours, they're confiscating everything you have. Like he said he saw at the Tampa Bay show, I believe, he saw a guy get his entire table confiscated because he didn't have a proof or a list of anything.
Too, and I think it was actually a guy that was selling his entire collection just to get out.
Yeah, and he lost it. Damn. Like it was confiscated because he didn't have paperwork to show where everything came from or that he produced it, XYZ. Like it was, and to me, it seemed like kind of simple stuff, because we sell things that we didn't produce, every couple of years, if we need to get out of something, but like, wow.
So like technically and legally, you're safe to breed morph California king snakes in California and not have to have a permit. Morph. So, but I have a friend of mine who's had a little run in with Fish and Game before. Maybe had some stuff he wasn't supposed to have. Just boas in a city that doesn't allow boas, but so he's not big on Fish and Game. And he had a super high white California king snake on his table, and he had just got it in a trade and was reselling it. And Fish and Game had way too many questions about a snake that was bright white with like 5 little black dots on it. And so he gave it to me, and then didn't tell me that until like the next show we were doing together. And he's like, "Oh yeah, by the way."
Oh god.
So it's and I run into that herping a lot. California's Fish and Game, I'm sure they have their officers that know what they're doing, but like we got stopped by Fish and Game a couple of years ago, and I think at one point they actually asked if we had like cobras or anything at home. Like they really had no idea what we were allowed to have. I said we were out looking for rattlesnakes, and the guy almost flew back to his car. And these are, this is fishing game. They were out looking for poachers.
Yeah,
right.
And it's always fun to explain to the law enforcement at 3 a.m. while you're walking around like a drug addict on the side of the road with a flashlight. But at least fishing game kind of gets it, but they really don't seem to be, very well educated on what we can and can't have sometimes, until they show up at a show and take a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what's annoying about them. And it's like, I'm a very big advocate of the DNR fishing game, like whole thing. Like I'm all for it, but it's also very frustrating when somebody that's only educated in the wild sector of things, because most of them are, like my background is in wildlife management. Like I know how a lot of these DNR guys think, and me being a captive sector keeper, I kind of get that side of it a lot more than others will, but like those guys that are, they work fish and game, DNR or whatever, they're educated in the wildlife section of things, which is great. But there's a huge gap of the captive sector that y'all are missing and you're not understanding. So like there needs to be a lot more education on that side of things with these entities,
And I think a lot of the states Florida's laws might be restrictive, and and it takes a lot of time, and it's probably unfortunate for people that I don't know how that all went down, if people were grandfathered in or anything like that, but there does kind of need to be some structure on a state level if they're going to try to improve their enforcement or anything like that, because I see why they're there. Like there's a guy local to me that and I a couple of my friends that are into reptiles here got the same kind of message, and it's like, hey man, you want an alligator? We can't have those here. You can't even get a permit to have those here. And not only that, it's like, the kind of guy that was asking if I wanted an alligator is not the kind of guy that can even, safely keep a ball python alive. So I'm like, oh God, and luckily the news story didn't go too far, but this guy's riding around with a 3-foot baby American alligator in his car. And who knows if it's even a baby. It was probably just a dwarfed, not taken care of. And then he gets, shows the wrong person or something, or gets pulled over. And now it's Fish and Wildlife's coming out to take it, and it's on the news. And, so there needs to be some kind of structure to what they're doing. Here we have like some really arbitrary laws, like I am allowed to be a snake relocator by my fishing license alone, and by the lack of wording. Basically it says that like I'm allowed to take certain animals, and it doesn't say like how, like, if I can basically release them immediately afterwards somewhere else. There's no restrictions to how you release or anything like that. And I feel like maybe they left that there kind of so people like me could help out a little bit. But there's no structure to it whatsoever. And then it leaves you in a questionable place with law enforcement if you have to, if you're caught in the middle of doing it, or, and then for years and years you could breed Atrox here, and nobody said anything about it. And now they're just cracking down on everybody that's breeding Atrox. And, like that guy, he's a really nice guy. It's unfortunate they took his whole collection. He had like 40 Atrox, and it's like, well, whether it was the law or not, they completely disregarded it for 25 years. And now they chose to enforce it. So they just, and most states have their kind of their stuff like that. There's the oddball states that you can't keep native species, or,
like for that stuff though, like I understand it to an extent, like with the whole native species thing, but like I think it should be taken species by species. Like, okay, look at which ones are protected, which ones are low in numbers, stuff like that. Atrox, there's not a shortage of Atrox.
We don't even have them here, and I could throw a rock at my front door and probably hit them.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like there's not a shortage of Atrox. So it's like, do you do something to kind of help the species out of whole in the captive sector? Sure. Do you confiscate somebody's entire collection because of it? No. I'm sorry, that's a load of crap. Like
the issue with that is, like, especially with what we have in South Carolina now in terms of native species laws, like they don't have the time or the funds to go and do surveys in different parts of the state for each species to dictate that. Like they're just going to pretty much be like, yeah, we got to do something.
Yeah,
we might as well. We don't know what the status is of black razors and corn snakes.
but that's the thing. It doesn't. A lot of those things are already in place, like in South Carolina, and this is because I went to school for wildlife management. There's not a lot of snakes in South Carolina that are protected. You have the indigo snakes that are low in numbers. You have the pine snakes, which are low in numbers, but like as far as rat snakes, corn snakes, garters, stuff like that.
Everything
there's
else.
really there's not like a shortage of them really anywhere. Corn snakes, maybe. I can understand corn snakes more because of how popular they became in the captive sector, especially the Okatee corns from our state. Okay, I understand that, but like not every other person is out here collecting these dirty yellow rat snakes. Like,
yeah, it's not like
nobody
the
really
California.
cares. I do, but
it's not like the Cow King thing where the localities were
Right.
the morphs and people just raided the spots
Yeah.
and it's all really accessible stuff right outside of
Right.
a lot of it's paved over now, but I mean you're 45 minutes from Los Angeles in any direction, you'll find some different look or different morph, and I could see them protecting stuff like that, but like
right.
So here we have the San Francisco garter, which is obviously endangered species and completely hands off, and it's just like in Europe that species is in great shape because they're breeding them like crazy.
Yeah.
And I lived for most of my career went down in the habitat of the San Francisco garter, and we are paving over it at an alarming rate. It will not be saved. And then
if you're keeping them, you're the problem.
Right, exactly. And then we've got the Zanata here, the California Mountain Kings, and they're protected too. And partially, I think that was because they were smuggled pretty heavily. But it's just we can have one, and then there's people in other states breeding them, multiple pairs, and no restrictions. But when you're out in the habitat, like Zanata are just hard to find. And they're not really rare. We have so much Zanata habitat left. It's habitat that you can't put a house on. It's all vertical.
Right. You
and
can't use it. So
yeah, and so it's sort of like it's kind of silly that those are protected the way they are because nobody ever sees them. If you look at iNaturalists, like it's not snake people. I look for them all the time. I never find them. It's people that see them camping on accident, and that's it. I mean, they're super cryptic snakes. But they feel like they need to protect them, and like I said, we can have one, and no breeding or anything like that.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's 100% time and funds and manpower to actually survey these things. And even if they had that, I don't know that they'd take the time or spend the money to do it. It's just not. It's important to them, but it's not that important.
Yeah, I feel like it gives them a foothold in that habitat too. Like gives the government a little extra control of that habitat. And if it's in national forest area, it's kind of I feel like it's a foot in the door for them to one day say, well, this area is closed. And that's we don't have anything that's really closed, but they closed all the gates 30, 40 years ago here. And it really cut off people from a lot of national forests that if you want to see it now, you walk to it.
Right.
And so that's kind of I don't think that's any time on the horizon, but still, I can't see any other reason why they'd want to control Zanata like that.
Did you see Kaufman's ball python video?
I did.
What did you think about it?
I on the whole I liked it. I mean, I wish, and I'm understand that I'm sure had a lot of constraints with how he was able to travel and where and getting out in the actual field. But as somebody who spends as much time out in the field as possible, I would have liked to see more of that. I was surprised by the habitat. I think most of us were. It's a lot greener than any of us expected from what we thought was a desert python. And so I don't think it changes. I mean, realistically, we're not working with the same animal anymore. So I don't think it changes much about the way we keep them. But I think it's definitely a good, enlightening thing for people to see. And there's been a lot of negative videos that came out over the years. So this is a little bit of a, a realistic look into what the society there is doing with ball pythons and how it affects them if we change the way that we, purchase them from them or, I mean, essentially they are going to go back to, it's going to impact their economy if we change the way we do stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting that strip of Africa has so many mutations on the whole. I mean, that's just crazy. It makes you wonder too.
It was those. I mean, like body tone wise and stuff. What he found was like, it seemed perfect.
Yeah. They really like. I try to, my females after they lay look a lot like, that, not quite as haggard as the one he was holding, kind of stretched out. But they look fairly deflated, and that's. I mean, you figure those snakes are universally, almost, it seems like ball python breeders do not go in their snake room at night. When you go in your snake room at night, your ball pythons are awake, searching the cracks all night. And so even I, go back and forth. I'm like, man, I'd like to give them more space than this, And so, obviously I was certain they were a lot more active than what we say they are. And, but I think it was a great look into the real world of ball pythons over there. And it was cool that he found, a pretty off the wall looking, it's a normal, but still had a neat pattern and everything.
Yeah. It was neat to see the sort of the color variation between the areas he was in. And I don't know. I talked about it briefly on Snakes and Stogies on Monday, and I don't know, like I enjoyed it. I liked watching it. I liked the sort of I don't have much of an interest in balls, but seeing the natural history of them and where they're coming from, like that does interest me. Like I do find that interesting. Yeah. I think he spent a little too much time on the whole market thing and that whole deal. I
mean, I wasn't super happy with the way he sort of, it's, I guess I'm a really non-judgmental person of people's lifestyles. I spent a lot of time in Mexico when I was younger. I love it down there. And it's just a different lifestyle than yours.
Yeah,
and so
it's a cultural thing.
There's to bring your judgment is not necessary, but he's also, and I think Dave's doing a great thing in the reptile world. He's speaking
Absolutely.
to a certain group of people, and I think in that portion of it, he kind of was speaking to a certain section of his audience more so than serious herpers. Yeah. But yeah, I felt like it was a little bit tone deaf.
That to me, it sounds, I haven't watched the whole thing yet. I am beyond busy right now between work and reptiles, so I haven't had a lot of time to look at YouTube and stuff. But from what I'm gathering from this, like that section of it, kind of, it seems like he was more so talking to his audience versus the cultural, like you said, it's a cultural aspect. It's like, I'm sure, people down here, we hunt deer like it's nothing. I'm sure there's somewhere, in some part of the world there where they're like, you kill those things? Like, what are you doing? Like it's a cultural aspect, like those people have to survive. So if they eat ball pythons to survive, like
a lot of it was like,
you kind of have to get over it. Like, I'm sorry, but it's,
the way I explained it to Phil was like, if I'm going to another country, regardless of where it is, especially if we're talking something more on the third world side, like I fully expect to see stuff that I'm not going to be terribly comfortable with. But it's like that's
because you're from America, like we're from a very, I don't even know what the term would be, but urbanized section of the world. Like America is very modern. Whereas you go to some place like Togo or Ghana, it's the exact opposite. So
we're really out of touch with our food here. We don't
exactly.
We're completely disconnected from our food. I was raised to kind of raise at least some of your own meat, and like with processing the quail for years on end. We draw really weird lines with what's okay. My wife used to sell like socialized pet rats when we lived in the Bay Area, and there was a huge market for them. People were paying way too much money for a rat. But a lot of college kids got them for projects. And one of the girls, I think she was a Berkeley student, she essentially taught a rat to read index cards, and it would get up on top of this little pedestal when she would hold up the up card. And then it would get down when she'd hold up the down card and take treats off from another card. And we feed those to our snakes. And so, and then later we draw these arbitrary lines like, oh, it's not okay to use ball pythons as feeders, or, like you can't eat this or you can't eat that. And it's like, well, you just fed something that can read to your snake. So maybe we shouldn't throw stones.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've actually thought about reproducing normal ball pythons as feeders. You know, because it sounds so, wrong
Make the King Cobra
to
guys happy.
to people that keep snakes, but there are plenty of guys that keep snakes that need snakes for feeding, like there's plenty of guys that breed anoles that wouldn't dream of feeding off one of their anoles, but rat snake guys would kill for a bag full of frozen thawed anoles to get their rat snakes going, so it's like, can we really judge that much, like
Totally. I'm kind of this, like the first time I had to feed a house gecko to an alterna, I was like, I don't know about this.
Right.
But it's just we draw the line, and so it's kind of us putting it in a place where maybe it doesn't necessarily belong. But like I made a stupid mistake with my incubator a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of my king snakes ate $500 ball pythons for dinner. And yeah, that wasn't very. My heat tape's in the back, and it's typical mini fridge incubator with fans blowing in it, and I put a clutch in there, and I turned a clutch that had already pipped and been cut sideways up against the heat tape in the back and blocked the fan at the same time, and it was all bad.
Man.
So
It's toasty.
yeah, I lost a bunch of visual pastel and super pastel clown stuff there. But at the end of the day, when I'm at a show, I will absolutely make sure somebody that I think is responsible and going to take care of a snake takes one home.
Right.
I made these prices up, and I have 80 some ball pythons. They're all the same snake. They have a little individual personality here or there, but the prices are arbitrary, and so I try to remind myself that all the time. It's like, it's still a $25 normal ball python underneath all that.
Right.
Yeah, but they didn't go to waste. Like that's
no, exactly.
Yeah.
At least they went to something. They didn't just go in the garbage or the freezer.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like people, there's. I won't go too far into it, but there's a breeder mentioned a new morph and something related to culling with the project to kind of and people interpret it as possibly him killing ball pythons for no reason. But at the end of the day, humane euthanasia is humane euthanasia, and it really doesn't matter what the purpose is. People do it to dogs at 2 or 3 years old that are going to have hip problems for life, just to avoid the dog having problems. If the animal doesn't know, it's as long as you've done it humanely. It's just where we've placed the line, and so I have no problem with people using ball pythons as feeders. They make great feeders.
Yeah, no, they do, and there's a market for it. Like I see guys all the time that are posting about like, hey, if you have any snakes that passed away in your freezer, let me know. Like I have king cobras that need snakes, and if you look at things like that, like I think stuff like indigo and any of the the Drymarchon genus, I think that's a lot more important than a lot of people want to believe, but it's proven with king cobras. Like if you have king cobras, you need to have some type of diet of snake. Yes, you can supplement rodents, at some points, but like you have to realize their natural diet is snakes in the wild. And
I would hope if someone's keeping king cobras, they would realize that.
Yeah, because
exactly.
if you want to extend the life of your snake, you can't feed it rats every 2 weeks, like that's gonna kill it prematurely because they're so fatty, and that's not what their system is meant to handle, so it's
I have a friend that keeps a few alterna, and he breeds them every couple of years. And his alterna look fantastic because he catches bluebellies all the time. Just little western fence lizards to feed them.
Yeah.
And they look great. They don't look like it's African house snakes do kind of the same thing. It seems like alterna get those like fat deposits and like looks like little fat rolls all down their sides. Yeah, a little lumpy look. And I think John Lasseter, who's kind of, he's who I ask anything king snake related. He mentioned it in a podcast. It's just that they're not made to eat rodents, and they don't.
Yeah.
You've got to take it easy on them if you're gonna. You got to really feed a specific diet to them if you're gonna feed them rodents to make sure that you're not giving them too much fat all the time. But I think reptile. It's just like with the California king snakes. They don't suffer from a regular rodent diet, and apparently they can get kind of hooked on snakes a little bit, but I can't see it as being bad to feed them what they're designed to eat. I mean,
yeah, but it, like with cow kings or like king snakes in general, I think with them, there's a difference
they're not an
between
obligate.
like,
They're not an obligate reptile feeder.
right,
They're
like
yeah.
they're more of a I'll eat anything, like whatever crosses my path, I'm gonna chomp it down, whether it be a snake, lizard, rodent, whatever. Like, and that's kind of different from a snake where most of its diet is other reptiles, like
Yeah.
that's,
Like there's the long nose snakes that we have here in the desert. They are just smoking. I mean, there's absolutely no way
so
that they
pretty.
wouldn't be in the hobby if they ate
Yeah.
something besides lizards. And it's just
Yeah.
that you're not going to get them to eat something different. I mean, I'd love to think that one day I'll find a little patch of them that are feeding on rodents and I can bring one home, but it just, I mean, they're pretty savage lizard eaters. So if you don't have a source for them, it's going to be a hardship to find them.
I think there's
still one
there's
hipster
I think there's a lot of snakes out there that people don't keep solely because they will only eat lizards,
leaf nose
like,
snakes.
yeah.
And it goes to, like you see people that have all the feeding problems with this species or that species, and it's been, said a million times, but it's not that the snake has a feeding problem. It's that we're not feeding it what it eats. And
Exactly.
We have a feeding problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like we want to feed everything European
Yeah.
rodents, and that's not what they eat. And even like I don't have a lot of problems with the ball pythons, but part of that is I selection pressure. I absolutely will not breed anything that does not eat on its own. It's the most basic behavior that a snake can perform, and if it won't do it, like there are certain that some of the less domesticated species that people work with, that's all you can do. Like like blackhead pythons and stuff like that. Like they a lot of those species, they pretty much have to assist feed them because you're on a time clock, and we don't have the right prey item that's gonna set them off, and so you're kind of stuck with it. But like with ball python, there's so many ball pythons in the world. There's absolutely no reason to limp one along as an assist feeder and then breed it later. Because I mean, if you look at ball pythons from the 90s where you couldn't keep them alive because they wouldn't eat, to now, what happened? We kept all the ones that ate rodents readily. And now that they're worth money, I see people just doing atrocious stuff. I mean, breeding snakes that they're palpating bowel movements out of for like a year, and then because it's expensive, they're breeding it. It's like, well, not touching your stuff. And the same thing with feeding. But we've and hognose are a good example of that too. We've conditioned them to eat rodents. They're not. I'm sure they'd love frogs, but we can't do that easily and dodge the whole parasite aspect of it. So.
But I feel like, hogs are almost the perfect example of that. Like there's a reason that it's 90% Western hogs in our sector because or 95 to 98% Western hogs, because like Westerns are the only ones that can live their whole lives readily off rodents and be relatively okay. Like Easterns, yeah, sure, you can get them on rodents, but to me personally, I've never seen an old Eastern hog in captivity because, and that
you just don't see a lot of them at all.
Yeah. And, I know plenty of people that keep them, like Kevin Fisher does amazing things with Eastern and Southern hognoses. He, gets them on rodents, feeding and all that, and that's amazing. But, and again, there definitely could be several out there, but I have personally never seen an old hognose snake that is readily on rodents, at least in Eastern, Westerns. Yeah. You see them all the time, full-blown adults that are old, taking frozen thawed mice, but your Eastern and Southerns, maybe they're just not established enough, but I don't see like 10, 12, 15-year-old animals eating rodents. That's
no. And I mean, I think unfortunately we don't see anywhere near enough old snakes at all.
No, you don't.
And a lot of that, it comes down to diet. Like one of my closest friends owns the local reptile store here, and some of the things that people bring to him are atrocious. Every time if you feed a Florida king, every time it looks at you like it's hungry, it's going to need a little rascal before too long to move around. I mean, those things, I know they get chunky, but geez, they'll get chunky quick. Or, like even just corn snakes, like, I've seen people bring him corn snakes. It's like, well, don't feed that for 3 months, like.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, for me, it seems like that idea of things is very much to new keepers or, and stuff like that. Because even my dad, when I was living with my parents, he would come up around my snakes and he would see one of my big carpets. Like, whenever I'm in the room, my carpets normally come out and they're like, "Ooh, what are you doing? Are you going to feed me?" And so I'll be working my room and my dad would come up and be like, "Oh, this one looks hungry. Why don't you feed it?" And I'm like, "Because I fed it a week ago. This is a 6-foot carpet. Like, it doesn't need to eat but once a month, but I fed it a week ago and it looks hungry now because it always wants food. They always want food. It's called opportunistic feeding. Like, they will feed once a week if you give it to them because they want to eat, and they will take every opportunity they can because they don't know if it's going to be 6 months before their next meal. But that's not how things work, and a lot of people, they see that instinct of like, "Ooh, he's out here, he might have food, let me see if he's got something," and they take that as, "Oh, he's hungry." Like, no,
It's a
it's
self-control thing, and
yeah.
people are not very good at it sometimes. I mean, I think a lot of it comes from, unfortunately, our society and furry pets.
Right, and then that's because, like, how you see just as many overweight dogs
Oh yeah,
as you do reptiles. I've seen, if anything, I've seen more overweight dogs than reptiles because that's like, and you also see more overweight just Americans than
oh
just
yeah.
people. That's what we do. We eat and we see things and we want to feed them. And everybody thinks these chubby or chunky animals are cute and whatever, blah blah. It's like, that's not cute. That's not cute at all. That's unhealthy. It makes me sad, like,
So
genuinely.
how I kind of got this way was with birds, and it's with the Coturnix, I wasn't feeding them to anything. I was eating them mostly, or if I was killing them. And so you open up every single one of them, and you can see the way that they store fat around their organs, and you can see that it restricts the obvious intakes and exhausts of specific organs. And so hearts and livers in production birds, they look terrible. I mean, they look absolutely awful. And I'm the same way. If I catch it that day and it hasn't sat on the heat tape overnight or something, I will cut open a ball python every time it dies, just to see where I'm at with how it's putting fat away. I mean, I feel like if you don't take a look inside of them, most of the hobby hasn't done that. And if you don't see that nasty, like, creamy, just the way they store fat is really weird. It's not like mammals where it's like, mixed into the muscle. It's all sitting around the organs and on the outside, and there'll be like a little fat wall around the like sort of the the organ cavities, and it's not good. But I feel like if people saw that more, maybe that might help. With the, I don't know. It's
yeah. It's sad, man. Especially with like carpets and stuff, because like even fat carpets they'll feel muscular. Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've seen, I heard about a 8-9 foot coastal and they're like, "Oh, this thing's all muscle," but it's as big around as my freaking bicep, and it's like, that's too big, man. Like, you think it's all muscle because it's flexing while you're holding it. Like, guarantee you, if that thing was completely relaxed and you were feeling it, it would be mushy as all get out, But it's also like, they're not like humans where you can see like the visible, like, "Oh, okay, that's overweight." With snakes, they just look big. Like, "Oh, that's just a big individual." No, it's not. You're overfeeding it and it's fat. It doesn't feel like it because you're holding it and it's flexed all the time, but it's,
Yep. Yeah, you always see the big boa or rock python or berm at a show that's like, it's perfectly round and like kind of bulging at the seams, and it's so tired from just being handed around for an hour that its tail is just like sagging to the floor. And it's like, it's not. I listened to way too much NPR for too many years. So my adult male coastal that's like 4 or 5 years old, people are like, "Oh wow, is that juvenile?" I'm like, no, that's it. He's 4.5 foot snake, and he eats basically once every 3 weeks, once a month. Like, I never, not really gonna do anything coastal wise, but whether you're gonna breed them or not, it's just not worth. The one, I take my snakes to the vet if I need to, and so vet bills. It's a lot of the hobby kind of dodges that, and so they don't. It doesn't get approached really, but just skinny dogs live longer.
Yeah, that's it's
see a lot of fat chondros too.
You see a lot of fat snakes. I think a lot of people, like, People don't realize that, like, you know, and again, this is kind of towards like a lot of newer keepers in the hobby. And it's like, you know, with snakes, there has to be a shape. Like with boas, you know, pythons, or with some pythons, it's more of a roundish shape. You know, yes, they do have that. Well, but with boas, it's much more square.
Yeah.
You know, like you have that square. And with chondros, it's more of a triangle. You know, like a healthy chondro looks skinny.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
had no
because
idea how big a chondro actually was the first 4 or 5 years I kept reptiles, because
Yeah.
you just see the, you know, like the pictures on social media, they're the size of an emerald, you know, and like, or you see them in reptile
Right.
stores and they're, you know, 1,200-1,500 grams. And then when you see a healthy one, it's like, holy crap, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, like chondros, you know, they have that more triangular shape to their body tone. And, you know, I looked into boas for a long time, and I remember reading like a healthy boa has more of a rectangular square shape. You know, it has the definition, not this round blob that
should look like a loaf of bread, basically.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah. That's a
flat
perfect.
sides.
Yeah.
And I have a space in my yard where I take a lot of snakes outside. It's all like outdoor carpet, and has like we had a big snowstorm we don't live in snow elevation, so it knocked down like every tree on the place. So I stacked all the manzanita around it, and it's just like a woven pile of branches for the snakes to climb around. And then, you know, indoor outdoor carpet, so I can wash it, you know, hose it all down, keep it clean. But I brought a ball python outside, you know, 4 or 5 years ago for the first time, put it on the ground, and it was just like teetering back and forth as it crawls, you know, and it's like, this is inappropriate. Thing should have way more muscle tone than this, you know.
Why is it waddling?
Yeah, and so that's that I kind of took it up another notch from there, and really cut back on the, you know, and just people, and it's always kind of the newer people or the animal rights sector of the, you know, hobby, that they just freak out when they see a snake that looks skinny to them. But I don't ever find a snake outside that looks like anything we keep inside. So yeah, it obviously they're just fine, you know.
Right. Yeah, and because that's the other thing, guys like you and myself, and Justin as well. Like we are herpers as well, so we see how things look in the wild, versus how things look in captivity. And I can tell you, I've seen the biggest rat snakes I've ever seen have been in captivity.
Yep.
And like I have seen some big yellows, like I've seen a 6-foot yellow rat before for sure. But this thing had scars, almost no pattern because it was so old, and it was big, but it was also very healthy, a lot of definition. So like, yeah, it was big, but I bet you that thing was 6-7 years old or more, versus, these things that are 3-4 years old and they're 6 feet long, as round as a paper towel roll. And, like I've never seen anything like that in the wild,
Yeah, I have a California king snake female. It's like 5+ feet, and she's she's big. She's 2 or 3 times around, as thick as your thumb. I've never seen a California king snake in the wild that was over like 3.5 feet,
exactly,
and never bigger around than like maybe a grown man's thumb. They just what size they can get, and what they get outside is, and obviously they don't all live the same life cycles outside, but still, even like it's all northern Pacific rattlesnakes here, so all Oregonus, and occasionally you'll find one that figured out the trick and is just sitting outside the rodent burrow and it's gotten fat, but like it's real rare. But I mean, you do find them, and it seems to be more rattlesnakes than anything else, because they've got all the extra tools for the ambush. But yeah, every once in a while you'll find one that's like clearly eating ground squirrels, and it's like, well, you're not going to live very long.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's not called survival of the fattest.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people look at my carpets and they judge me based on how small they are, because I have 3-year-old snakes that look like everybody else's 1-year-olds. And it almost like makes me feel bad. And I don't like telling people how old my carpets are because of that fact. But my carpets like are extremely toned. Like very, very toned. They don't have any folds, nothing like that, but they're small. Like I have stuff that other people would be breeding this year that mine, they still have 2 years to go, but that's because I like my breeders at 5 years old. I'm not trying to breed at 3 or 2, like I don't know.
Yeah, that's. I mean, and it's really rampant in the ball python world, and we still have no idea how long these snakes are going to live. Everybody's breeding them at like 18 months to 2.5 years old, and they're just cranking them with food to get them. They've come up with all sorts of little stratagems to get them bigger faster, but because the relevance shifts constantly, it doesn't matter to people if the snakes live 10 or 12 years. They're only relevant to the market for the first 3 or 4. And so, unfortunately, that's it's a big part of the. There's a lot that goes on in the ball python hobby that's probably could use some adjustment just as far as the health of the snakes and not no racks or things like that, but just a couple of ththings about the way we keep them. Like I personally think we keep them way too hot too, and that only benefits the breeder because it's keeping the metabolism cranked. It's my room. I actually run ambient heat in my ball python room. I don't have any heat tape because of a near heat tape fire, and I have it. My herb runs it, and basically the room's 86 during the day. It drops to 82 at night. And I have been doing that for like 3 years, and I have noticed zero difference in behavior, where they're like the way they sort of thermoregulate. There's still some sort of evaporative cooling effect to the water, and if you kind of temp gun in the tub, it's not the same, not the gradient that the hobby kind of all looks for, but it works just fine. And I feel like I've kind of when snakes aren't obviously they need to thermoregulate, but they're I get called to rescues, or you find your own snakes doing the dumbest things when it comes to setting on heat. And so I just think that, they're going to go to the hottest spot. They always are. And so if it's 80, 88, 92, whatever it is, they're going to go there and set there. And if it's, obviously those aren't dangerous temperatures, but they are going to keep the metabolism turned up. If everybody that's, used a lot of heat tape has had a probe fall off and found at least 50, if you got a bunch of racks, at least half the snakes are sitting on like 120 degree, 130 degree heat tape, and just, they're not going to move. They're going to sit right there till they burn.
Yeah.
So
even 86, like I don't, aside from the Ackies, which are obviously a pretty extreme exception, but for the most part, I don't even like keeping stuff above that,
Yep.
Like my room dips into probably the upper 70s at night, and like everything gets turned off. I mean, half the time I'm not even running heat on any of the racks or anything anymore. Like Ackie cage and all the lights and stuff go out, temperature drops a decent bit, and then in the morning everything gets turned back on, and by the middle of the day it's pretty warm in there. And even the Ackies, like they've been fine with those night drops. Like I think it's probably actually not a bad thing for them at all, but
it's more natural than anything.
Yeah.
Me, like I keep, when it comes to carpets, I keep more poplin carpets than anything. Everybody knows this.
What?
I have one pair of coastals.
Get out of town.
Yeah, but everything else is poplin. So, but like I have, obviously I know it's not the most accurate thing, but it's accurate within a spectrum. I have West Papua on my, on my weather app on my phone, and I look at the temperatures, just to see how things are going, and it never changes. It's always like, high 80s during the day, it rains, and then it's low to mid 70s at night. That's just like the fluctuation every single day, and it's like that's what they go through, So me now, I am, while I'm running racks, it's all the heat tape stays on 24/7. But as I'm doing cages, I'm switching over to lights and UVB and all that. Everything's gonna get a night drop. All heat's gonna go off at night because that's natural. That's what happens when the sun goes down. Like it doesn't matter where you are in the world. When the sun goes down, it cools off. I mean, I don't know.
I think as we all evolve, and as the hobby evolves, our methods all kind of shift as we go. Yeah. And like this conversation was kind of going on. I'm pretty active on the Morphmarket community forum, and this conversation kind of came up recently about ambient keeping, and a few people were like, why would you even do that? Snakes need to, and there's just some basic arguments that kind of. The verdict's still out on certain things. Like we know they need to thermoregulate, but we don't understand it the way we think we do. Like we were just talking about, they will go lay on something that will kill them 100% of the time if you give them the option.
I don't see snakes basking when it's 100 degrees outside in the middle of the day.
Yeah, and so here, in our hot, we have like 2 months of just insane temperature. So at 9 o'clock at night, it'll still be 100 degrees. It won't get under 95. There's nobody in the world that keeps their California king steaks at those temperatures, and the ground is so hard here. The burrows are not deep, so they're not reaching that temperature stabilization point in the ground. So they're still maybe 3 or 4 degrees cooler. But like, like I brought up in that particular conversation, is like, look, these things, for a good portion of the year, they never live in the gradient that the hobby says they have to have, and they won't digest right, or they won't. So we just don't understand temperatures, I think, quite the way that we like to think. Certain species, we've, you dial it in through failure, right, or success. But I mean, generally, I think we keep most everything to hotter than need be. And the more you herp, the more you find stuff out when it's way cooler than what we would ordinarily think. And the like, you herp the desert a little bit. Like when we were in the Great Basin, we were trying to get see if it was like a side blotched or a fence lizard that was racing around in the shade. And as you're following it around, it runs out to the edge of the shade and it stops dead, like it's going to run into lava or something, because it's about to run into the sun, and it knows the rock's too hot for it to touch. You temp gun the rock and it's like 149, 152, something like that. And the lizard's obviously got it worked out. It stays on the shady side as the sun moves, but it clearly knows that it's going to die if it goes outside that, or it's going to get hurt if it goes out in the sun like that.
Well, even like the UV exposure too, like prolonged.
Yep. Yeah, and I noticed that, we haven't done a lot of desert herping, but I noticed a lot of lizards out in the indirect sunlight. And throughout the day, you can find them in indirect sunlight. And it's it's just because temperature. I mean, your temp gun's your best friend when you're trying to figure out what they're doing. And like, we found that we were trying to find more horned lizards, and we found that oh dude, they're so awesome,
so cool.
And we just couldn't find it. We kept finding the burrow tracks where they're like, you see the dirt's really loose, kind of sandy, and you'll see the lizards track right up to where they dug into the their little burrow, and the burrow collapses on them, so you don't want to dig them up and screw them up for the day, because they're obviously trying to stay out of the heat. But they're like, we looked the whole first day, the whole first morning, in the evening, couldn't quite figure it out, and then my buddy got up to take a pee in the morning at like 6:30 and found one, and so they were just out way earlier than what we thought. They were out when it was like 60, 62, 64 degrees, just getting it done before the sun gets too hot, because like that loose soil they're in was actually hotter than the rocks. It was running like 160. And so they're,
wow.
Yeah. And then, other animals that are a little more designed for it, like the long-nosed leopard lizards, those were just in the shade of the sagebrush, which was, running like 108, 110 in the shade. But they seem to be a little more adapted to it, because that was where we were finding them constantly. And so it just, I don't know, like I said, they obviously have a temperature range they need, but in the hobby, I don't think we understand it like we like to think.
And I think as herpers, we have a better grasp on that type of thing, because like, if you're especially around here, if you're a herper, you know that your best times to herp are as soon as spring hits and as soon as fall is in place. When fall is officially here, those are great times. Then when spring is officially here, it's great times. But that in between of dead summer, it sucks. You're not going to find crap unless you're out like late evenings when it drops to the 70s, and even here, like, late at night here, there we'll have, granted, it's not usually in the 90s here at night. We normally don't stay that hot during the evening, but I wake up at 5:30 every day for work, and I'm at work by 6:30, and when I get in my truck, it's been 82 degrees. So it's like, that's hot. You're really not going to find a lot that day, but we still have days that are more like 75. Like this morning was 75 degrees when I got my truck. I think this morning would have been a great morning to go out and find some stuff, because it was cooler. But those hot mornings, those hot days, you're not going to find anything, because they don't want to be in it as much as you don't. Like, it's too hot, man.
Yeah, I went road cruising last Saturday night, and Friday night we went out to a higher elevation, And we found like one Northern Pacific up at probably like 4,000 feet or something like that. And that's one of the nice things about where I live is I can get to an elevation where I'll find something even in the heat of the summer. Right. But like I went to kind of our honey hole last week and there was nothing there. I just quit at midnight. It's like I can drive around all night and not see anything. It was like 94 degrees still, but yeah, I don't know. That's one of the nice things about like Morphmarket is that a lot of the people that are on there, they have that they're new, they're not, they're just coming into the hobby, but they're trying to take it seriously. They're trying to kind of get on that level like a lot of us are, and it's nice to see at least some avenue for that. I cannot dodge this sun no matter what I do. The storefront keeps like layering off my glasses, and there's a storefront window behind the monitor, and it's just killing me.
It's funny. I actually looked at you and I saw the sun and I was like, that's so funny because it's pitch black here. Like it's dark. It's all hell out there.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a unique environment for herping because like right now if I walk outside it's still 105. Yeah, we only get that way for a couple of months, but it's still it's long enough. But yeah, like herping around here, it's June is kind of our prime time because it does stay. We're not high elevation, but for some reason, we kind of stay cold a little bit late into the season. May there's not a lot of stuff moving around, and then it's pretty much from like June to September is our prime time. But we'll find the basic stuff, the Norpax and the Cow Kings all through October rather.
Man, I wish June through September was our prime time, man. Like that would be ideal. But our prime time is like April to May, like is your really good times, at least your warm days in April. We normally get a freeze right before Easter. Right before Easter, we'll usually have a freeze. But any warm day before Easter has been insane for me, as far as road cruising or going through WMAs. It's fantastic. It's the best herping out there. But as soon as like June hits and it gets hot, it's like everything just shuts down and it's hot as all get out. Things are only coming out super late or super early. And it's,
Yeah, it's nice that like we found some pretty nice spots in the desert when we were there recently, and it's about like a 3-hour drive to kind of our jumping off point. So it's nice to find it's high desert, so it's like you're over 4,000 feet elevation, so your windows are really tight. You got a little bit here in the morning, and then there's some stuff you can find during the day, but and then back in the evenings and for a little short period, and then by 11 o'clock or something, it's 60 degrees out, even in the middle of summer, and nothing's moving, and so around my house, I could drive around all night and it's still 95 and nothing wants to come out. So, yeah, it's the desert. I don't know, having gone there for the first time and we found like 8 unique species to us. I'll definitely spend a lot more time herping there. It's the way.
Yeah, the desert's definitely a different beast, because around here, it's pretty much across the board, wherever it's hot, it's going to be hot everywhere. You don't really get the ranges and elevation here. Everything's flat here.
It's like living in Vietnam.
Yeah, we can, it's just like because the elevation changes around us, we can drive to new weather in an hour or less. But the other thing that keeps me kind of going back to that side of the mountains is there's a geographic barrier between me and the lutosis. So I'm trying to find that perfect lutosis to keep in the snake room, and I got to drive up over this mountain range that's in the way. So. Yeah, they're
worth it.
And they're so beautiful. The one we found this last trip was the first one we found, and it wasn't it wasn't that cream colored kind of Utah lutosis that everybody. But we get some of those in the area. The more reduced pattern, higher contrast, and so that's kind of anytime I'm free to get over there, it's worth it. It's the Norpax are cool, but they all look the same.
I like the brick red ones.
Yeah, and we get a green phase here that's pretty cool. It's pretty. So some examples of it are pretty cool.
Norpax get red. The South packs are like the darker black ones, right?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, they'll have more of that black on them, and the the Norpax, the pattern's somewhat variable, but it's pretty consistent. Well, the nice thing about them is their temperament is really chill. They're like the least likely California rattlesnake to bite you. I guess maybe a speck's probably a little better, but. Like I had a relocation last year where the lady stepped on one in shorts and sandals and just hissed and slithered off. Yeah, they're pretty chill. Like I get
Dodged
there
the
and
bullet there.
yeah, the cats like made it mad, you know, and it's all and they're like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm gonna wait 10 minutes and let it calm down, and just scoop it up and throw it in the bucket, you know." And
Yeah, I'm gonna wait 10 minutes and pick it up.
yeah, they're really chill, you know. It's
Yeah.
but they're not. They're you know, that's one thing I got to kind of make the trip to Southern California. I really the specs and the Panamints and stuff down there are just awesome.
Hell yeah! How'd
Yeah.
you end up getting involved with the Morphmarket?
So I kind
Gang.
of I kind of just was you know, lurking there for a while, and there we live in an Amazon Prime society, and I just noticed there wasn't quite enough people in there answering questions and, you know, and creating content. It's a really cool format. It's kind of a, you know, hybrid social media forum type thing. And so it's there's a lot of room for the format. It gives you a little more, you know, it's hard to teach people in 140 characters.
Yeah.
And so it's great for that. But I just kind of you know, there's the staff on there is awesome. They're really great to deal with. You know, they're if you have a question or you need, you know, you want to see a change, or yeah, it maybe not isn't something that's practical or they can do it, but they're willing to listen every time, and they're super helpful to, you know, anybody that's you know, puts in the effort. And so it's a pretty, you know, the people that are on there without any, you know, no one's telling us to do it. We all kind of present a united front of information.
Yeah.
You know, and that's I think helpful when people come in. And it's not like Facebook groups are, you know, we all know how much of a dumpster fire pretty much every one of them is. And you can't teach people in a Facebook group, and that's actually what it shows. It's the first thing I tell people not to do. I'm like, look, if you want to learn something, either, you know, DM me or you know, go on Morphmarket and ask, because we sort of know who, you know, whose expertise is what, and can kind of get you to the right person there.
Yeah. No, I love the fact that John has been so open to ideas and suggestions and stuff. You know, I think feel like there's a lot of other people wouldn't be as open-minded to that input from other people, when especially when you're dealing with something as successful and as smoothly run as that website and whole thing is. You know, he's done a phenomenal job, you know, with the entire thing. And I laugh now because I remember when it sort of first hit the scene, I was like, man, there's no way this is going to replace Fauna or King Snake.
Dude, I
it's
didn't.
Another marketplace. And then after a while, I was like, holy shit. Like, it's actually, once it sort of broke away from the sole ball python platform, you know, and expanded. I was like, oh god, now it's completely changed.
Yeah, Morphmarket has become like the standard.
Now it's
you know,
like what's Fauna and King Snake doing?
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean, I was unsure about.
1999.
Yeah, I was unsure about using it at all, you know, when it first came out. But like King Snake, you know, it just doesn't offer, you know, like you said. I mean, 1999 might be being generous, you know. I mean, it's that thing's never changed. And Fauna, whether it deserves it or not, Fauna has a certain reputation, and you can't ignore it. Yeah, exactly. You just can't ignore it. You know, you see the people that are on there just obviously trying to shaft somebody. You know, it's been going on for years.
There was nothing more entertaining than that BOI thread.
Oh yeah.
And then once they were like, "Yeah, you got to pay for it to see it," I'm like, "Yeah, no."
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Don't love it that much.
I checked out on them a long time ago. I never bothered to sell anything there, even on King Snake. Instagram, before Facebook took over and screwed up the algorithm, Instagram used to sell everything I need to sell. And then I got to a point where I had to start doing shows, because I still use Morphmarket on the marketplace, and I'll ship certain things. But the reality is, if it's under $500, people don't want to buy it on there. You know, not every average combo. And so I just save a lot of that for shows. And if I have something that's a little too high end for, you know, the you know, show market here, then, or the pet end of the show market, which is kind of where my wheelhouse, then I sell it on there. But I where I live, my shipping restriction is not just wintertime. It's too hot to ship for a good portion of the year.
Yeah.
We are too.
You know, and so it's like I don't use the marketplace aspect of it as much as I, you know, do on the forum part. But you know, it's I think John's really they're developing it constantly. He's got a great idea there.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's just.
Even last year at Daytona, like when we were, you know, we had the magazine table and stuff, and he and I had talked briefly, and he was like, he literally had a book with him, and he's like, man, like, is there anything that, you know, we can do better or change? And I, at the time, I had no idea that like the browse latest button existed. And I was like, I just want to see everything in like chondros or corn snakes or whatever that's for sale. I don't want to have to filter through the different traits and stuff. And then like Brendan Meyer was like, dude, you just go click this button right here. I'm like, oh, thanks. I felt like a 9-year-old man, but like John was like literally like writing this stuff down in his book. Yeah. And it was kind of like, oh my God, like this guy's serious about it.
Yeah,
dude.
no,
like,
he was very apparent that he cared, and it especially showed when Travis kind of got on board with the whole with everything in Morphmarket. He messaged us, and it was like, hey, if y'all, I respect you guys as keepers in the hobby, so like, we want to make this towards hobbyists, so if y'all have any suggestions, please let us know. And like just recently, I download. It's not really an app. It's kind of weird, but like you can download it from the website. And so like I have that. It's like a quick access to the website.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just that alone, man, like I downloaded that and I saw all the different, like the categories changed. It's more specific, and it's like, wow, this is, like they really paid attention to what people were asking. And it's truly impressive.
That's what's made him so successful is he saw that major gap with fauna and king snake and said, this hasn't changed in a very long time. Times have changed. People have changed. Technology has changed.
Right.
And then he went and found the way to make it as user friendly and like intuitive as possible. And he's keeping up with the times though. He's not just like, yeah, cool, we got it down to where we want it, let it coast. It's like, no, like John's, as long as that whole website and marketplace is around, I feel like he's involved with it. I think it's going to continue.
It's going to be updated,
constantly be evolving.
He's done a lot that he didn't have to do to support his marketplace. So like the Morphopedia thing is like I'll go to the World of Ball Pythons for a minute with the ball python combo because that's something if you don't breed them, you don't have to do all the time. Like I'm like, is this, I got to see a picture of it. And about 6 times in 10, you go to World of Ball Pythons, you're like, that is definitely not it. Like I am never made this combo before, but I'm certain that's not it. And so the Morphopedia sort of brings a little bit of accountability to it. It has to have been public. People have to know about it. Kind of the community gets to, have their input. And that was really necessary. And then just having the community there, like, hey, I just bought this thing on Morphmarket. Now, how do I take care of it? Which unfortunately is as much as we all know, that's not the way you do things. That's pretty much how people buy in today's world. And so, and he supports the hobby at large quite a bit too, and that's, it's obviously all in his best interest, but he really doesn't have to do it to remain profitable, and, they really have, and they are, there is an actual app in the works. And I don't know when they plan to launch it, but they do have a real app coming.
Nice. Do you know if it's going to have like the community aspect with it, or is it just going to be marketplace stuff?
I'm not sure. I know so the community runs like a Discord server, and so I don't know how that would tie into the app. And that's why it's like some of the things like I've occasionally asked for a change on the community, and they're like, yeah, that's kind of like you call Discord. And so there's a certain, I don't know, I'm not very educated in that aspect of it, so I don't know if I would assume that they're going to have the community on there. I hope so. I spend a lot of time there. I don't want to have to go the long way all the time.
Yeah, I haven't been on there much. I've been trying to be more active, at least in the community thing, just because there's sort of a like nostalgic forum feel to the whole thing, which I kind of like, and I haven't like it's really been a very bullshit free zone. It hasn't been like Facebook where it's like, oh my God, like what am I reading? It's everyone's been really positive, and at least from what I've seen so far, I haven't dug too deep into a lot of the the major parts of it, like the ball section and stuff. But it's been cool. Like I've enjoyed going on there and looking around and seeing what's new and posting stuff here and there, and I like it.
There's a little bit more of a I won't say like a professional discourse atmosphere there, but it is to a degree. It is a little bit more kind of people tend to speak better there. Yeah, exactly. Like you don't see the angry troll flipping out too much on there. That's very, very rare. And then when we get back to the Bush League Breeders Club screaming at each other days, the staff puts some labels on there like, hey, it's a divisive topic. Why don't you slow down a little bit? Think about your response.
We're watching you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the refs in a hockey game trying to like decide if they want to break up a fight or not. And they're like, we could probably let them go a little bit, and then you have the refs that are like, no, we're not even getting started.
We're not
Before you even
doing
get the
this.
gloves off, we're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes the discussions will get pretty heated, but it tends to be on more technical stuff. So it's not, people tend to be pretty well spoken and have a formulated argument, and it's not the, just mudslinging for the sake of it.
Well, the other thing that's been really, really nice is the people that are, moderating or administrators and stuff. There's not the big headedness that you get with people that run groups and like old forums, and how people just like the freaking god complexes people get when they're put in charge of a fucking forum.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. Like, especially the people that run the groups, like on Facebook. It's like,
I know.
It's unbelievable how you'd think they were friggin' running the country. Like,
yep.
it's like it's a Facebook group, dude. Chill.
Sometimes I'm not sure if the moderators are worse or if the people in the groups are worse. It just depends on the group, but
depends on the day.
Yeah, it's some of them, man. I can't even get into it with those people. They're emotional, irrational arguments, and no one's going to change anybody's mind. And so there's no science. There's or there's very little. It's like sprinkled in the middle of a bunch of caps lock, and nobody. It's
sprinkled in the middle of a bunch of caps lock.
I think the big differentiating factor there that does kind of filter people out from like forums and the Facebook groups thing is like the fact that you have to create an account.
Yeah.
As small of a wall as that is, there's just people that are just not willing to climb it. And it's like, I think that because it's also a separate site, so you have to make the effort to go there. And I think, that's why a lot of the forums I think died off, is because Facebook became like, why do I need to go anywhere else when I have it right here and it's all in one place? I don't have to leave. And so with Morphmarket community, and I guess any of the other forums that maybe are still alive and kicking, which I feel like is next to none, but there's that wall of like, okay, you got to register, now you got to verify, now you got to actually log on and check it regularly. Like people have gotten, we've all gotten lazy because of social media and stuff like that, and so it's just it was the natural progression of things. But I find it funny that the only thing to stop at least a decent chunk of people from sort of hopping on those and not being in the groups is just the registration.
Yep.
Yeah, and then like I said, it does have more of a maintained everybody tends to there's the pet keeper that's coming in asking their first questions or whatever, but when it comes to the more technical stuff, people we're all generally pretty, most of us are we're all know-it-alls, to be honest. But it's a little bit of, there's just more accountability there. Then it's not like the forum days where the moderators were, like you said, it was either somebody that was surely biased one direction or the other, or just a completely non-present moderator, and it's it's everything's going to hell. And then they actually at Morphmarket they are pretty good about letting a discussion evolve without as long as nobody's picking at anybody. And even I feel like in the forums a lot of times they would shut it down before that just because maybe the moderator didn't like the person or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a difference between a quote unquote heated discussion or two people having a disagreement versus somebody just being a dick. Like there's a huge line. Some people, on Facebook, you see all those guys, like somebody asks, a quote unquote stupid question, but like they may just not know. It's not like, it's not stupid to them. They're genuinely curious. But you have those people that want to jump down somebody's throat. That's like, why are you posting this on here? Blah, you're stupid. You should know this. It's like, no, that's not how we should approach things, and then you have those discussions between some of the bigger names in the hobby to where they're just disrespectful in a way. And it's like, like we can have two different opinions on something and both work. We don't have to all agree with how people do things, but if your animals are healthy, is it really that?
But as far as like the regular questions being asked, like I do kind of get the frustration there.
Because it's like people look through the forum and you'll find it
before you go to other people, kind of thing. It's like people are just they're the one thing that comes to mind that I always think of when I think about that is in one of the Boyga groups on Facebook. Like someone literally wanted a care sheet in the comments. Like not even not even vaguely asked for it, but like straight up was like, can you guys tell me how you're keeping these and what their care is like? And I think I commented and just put a link to Google or something. I was like, at least
yeah, you did.
put some effort into trying to answer this question for yourself. So like in that regard, I get it, but I also do understand like people may not know where to go. People may not know where to start. I mean,
and you can't always trust Google, man.
If they have FOIGA and they're asking sort of what do I do, there's a bigger issue at hand there. But,
yeah, exactly.
It's just like I understand both sides of it. It's like if it upsets you that much, like you don't have to answer. You're under no obligation to reply.
Yeah, you don't have to comment on it.
Yeah,
just keep scrolling.
It's it's that the shit you chose to step in. And people can't avoid it, and I try to we all do it. We all have a bad day and we all snap at somebody, but I try to I just try to, ignorance is honest, and people, if they're truly ignorant, they really don't even know where to begin, and so you got to give them some kind of a foothold. And then there is this, we've created a culture of laziness, and people won't go, like they won't even just click another tab and go to Google and search real quick.
But I mean, Google, to Jake's point too, you don't know exactly if the information you're getting is correct, but that's why you look up more than one article.
Exactly.
Research.
And in my thing, man, I won't comment on somebody's.
You're not even
post.
on Facebook most of the time.
I'm
anyway,
really not.
so.
Like, I don't do Facebook nowadays. Like, I haven't checked it in
You don't even do Instagram.
I do Instagram.
Barely.
I posted a reel yesterday. Asshole. Like, come on, man.
Mostly
I'm busy.
It's just for giving people unnecessary anxiety.
Exactly.
There's constantly some angry little red number telling you to click on me, and then at the other end of that red number is an argument that's ready to be had. So it does
I keep my social media very I leave it over there. I care about my animals much more than the social media aspect of things. So it is what it is, but it's when it comes to people wanting questions, I normally won't go out of my way to comment on somebody's thing because there's a million other people with their 2 cents.
Well, they're gonna all comment the same thing.
Yeah, and this isn't, and mine isn't gonna get through. I have done to where I'll give a short explanation and be like, message me if you want to know more. Because I'm not gonna tell you all this stuff on a Facebook comment.
Encyclopedias.
Yeah, but I can't tell you how many people have messaged me with basic information because they didn't know, but because they messaged me, I'll give them a whole care sheet in a message. Because you found me, you saw that I take care of my stuff a certain way. You want to know how I do it? I will gladly share that with you. I'm more than happy to answer the most basic questions in a message, because you took the time. Hey, I found 5 different things on Google that said this. What actually works? What
looked
works
at
for you?
the Reptiles magazine care sheet, and it was the same for iguanas as it was for ball pythons. And they're all 88 degrees, 78 on the cool side. Feed it once a week.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so it does care sheets. I'm glad that they're dying, and that people do have more access to people that have the experience and get out there and actually there's no replacement for experience. It doesn't matter, when it comes to like all the new ball python breeders. I try to, just relax for 3 or 4 years. Stay in the hobby and just relax for a few years, and then
enjoy it.
Yeah, you'll know what you're actually about and not be guessing so much.
Yeah,
and just enjoy the journey. I mean, that's how you're going to figure out new things. You're going to figure out some trick that we don't know, or something that sets you aside from everybody else. Jesus, that sun is killing me.
I was gonna say it's getting closer.
It's like chasing me around. It's like chasing me around. I can't escape it. Like hiding in the corner over here now.
Further and further up your face. It's like at some point he can't duck or go higher than that.
Yeah.
Burn his retinas.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think, I wish more people would get on Morphmarket. I mean, it needs more kind of content creators, people that will actually and it doesn't have to be I mean, I'm not talking about you making some elaborate Instagram post or something. Just get on there and share your snakes. Just talk to people. Just, hey, this is what I do. It's a little different than everybody else. And, what do you think about that? Or, there's I've, you just have access to a lot of cool people, and they're like Brandon Osborne's on there, Osborne Reptiles, or I think it's he's kind of linked up with Clint Bartley and their Metazotics.
Yeah.
And so, but Brandon's got 20 plus years of experience, and he's done it, he's kept it, and so, and he keeps stuff in a unique way. He keeps all the species he keeps are mostly domesticated type stuff, but he keeps them all ambient actually, and all about the same temperatures, like 84 with a little bit of a natural room drop, and you wouldn't, if you're trying to experiment, or if you've had a heat tape fire and you're nervous about that stuff, then you'd never have access to that guy. You wouldn't know. You'd have to figure this out on your own, but there's somebody on there that's there to help you.
That's why I want people to learn from my mistakes and not have to deal with it themselves, especially when it comes to sort of the medical disease related things. It's like, I'll gladly, if someone and that's when I sort of comment on stuff, is when someone has a scenario that I found myself in. Like, I'll 100% tell you what happened and how I handled it, and maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't, but there's that kind of stuff, prolapse, whatnot. It's like that I will gladly help someone figure out, because I remember when I had to deal with it, and I didn't, I was pretty much on my own, which worked out because you retain that information much better when it's all on the line and it's just you.
When you have to figure it out.
So
I had a ball python that I was the first one that I produced that I raised up to breeding size as a female, and she was egg bound, and I wasn't really close enough to the vent to try to aspirate or whatever, and I tried palpating her, and when she did finally lay the eggs, her oviduct, or the lining, was attached to one of them, so she basically prolapsed the entire thing. And I mean, it was euthanasia was the only option at that point, but through that, let's say I don't give that advice. Like, wait, where are the eggs? Let me see a picture. Are there eggs by the vent? If they're not by the vent, don't go squeezing on her a whole bunch. I mean, she might just be running late. Over the years, you have that happen. Like, ball pythons normally 30 days after ovulation will drop their eggs. I've had them go I've had them go like 18, and I've had them go 50. So it's and it's just you can't, access to other people's experience is invaluable if you'll actually take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, as we approach this 2 hour 15-minute mark in this episode, which this has been great. So before we finish this up, where do you see your collection moving in the next 5 years?
And why is it rhino rats?
So I they're definitely on the list, and over the next few years, I will be shifting more to I'm kind of got a feel of my California circuit here, and there's not anybody that in the northern part of California is doing a big range of diversity, and so I've got a couple of carpet projects that I'm growing up, some couple Amazon tree boas, getting a pair of proven Amazon tree boas from a friend here soon.
Nice.
And just kind of shifting more towards that diverse table. I mean, the ball pythons are still going to be on it, but a lot more. California king snakes are local to me, and they're one of the coolest snake out there. So I've got to do what I can do with those, and I've got some pretty cool ones. I've got one of the very few known paradox cow kings, and we still in our world have no idea if those are going to be genetic. Probably not, but you never know. And so I got a lot of cool stuff I want to do with cow kings, and just colubrids in general. But the ball pythons, it's I won't say it's run its course with me, but my projects are my projects, and I'm not doing a lot more with them. I've got a lot of actually. I guess I'll be a boa breeder before too long, because I've got a ton of boas growing up. So, it's just a little shift more towards diversity, and I don't care to ever be a huge producer, but I do like to keep myself at reptile shows, and like I said, providing those pets.
Yeah,
bear rats.
That's awesome, man.
Hey, those are another one that I've got to take a look at a little harder.
Yeah, rat snakes in general, man. Don't look at just those. Don't look at those. Just those silly Texas stuff. Like you gotta merge into some of the.
Nobody
Southeastern.
wants your Neurodia.
I didn't. I said rat snakes.
No, but that was you. We were all thinking it. You just
there's a couple invasive populations in Neurodia here, so fishing game has its totally off limits with those. No plan, none of the Neurodia complex is welcome here at all.
Oh man,
there's
not missing much.
Yeah, right. I mean, I remember him a little bit from back east, but we've got nice diversity of garter snakes, so it's like it's
What's
close
the
enough to a water
difference?
snake. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
close enough. They're
Yeah.
really stinky when you pick them up, and they don't generally have a bad attitude. So
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome, man. No, there's a lot of stuff in the colubrid world, and me with my carpet pythons, I'm kind of in a similar scenario. Like my
He's given
carpets,
up.
I have not given up. I finally pulled the trigger and sold quite a few babies from my last clutch, which was good. But I'm going to keep my carpets as like my staple because those have always been there. I've worked really hard to get the group that I have of poplin carpets. I have selectively bought a lot of different things, which are great. And they're kind of always going to be there. Like I'm always going to have a couple clutches of carpets, but like the colubrids now have become my main focus because there's so much, man. There's so much to do, so much to be done, and I just I want to be a part of all that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's we all kind of progress and move on, and then the more it's kind of like I think we all kind of get more towards those complicated things and kind of leave the simpler stuff for the next generation coming up behind us. But
just have both. That's my policy.
Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, you can keep what you want. So I mean, just make it. A lot of people keep a lot of things that doesn't really do it for them, and I've been the same way. I mean, I really wanted to. An albino boa constrictor a while back, and I got one. I'm like, this thing has a terrible attitude. Like, do I really need to keep? Do I have to keep this thing? Like, it's snapping at the glass. Like, I mean, just constantly. You come in the room and it sounds like a big pit in the corner growling at you all the time. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't need a boa constrictor like this. And I found somebody that wanted a boa constrictor like that. And I'm like, here you go, man.
There you go.
Have at it.
So just
problem.
Yeah, you really got to keep what you want, or because I've been through it before when I was just super ball python heavy. I got really jaded, and and everything suffers. Your mental health, the carrier collection, stuff like that. And so you really have to keep it to where you're excited about it.
Yeah, and the mental health aspect is really a big one, a big thing that like a lot of people don't look at. Justin and I feel like look at that a little bit more than some people because we both struggle with our own mental health problems. And I feel like a lot of people do more than they like to admit.
Everybody does.
Like I am very open about it. If you want to talk to me about it, I'm always very open about what I've dealt with. But it's like, because you and I have talked about it extensively. Okay. That's, but it's one of those things that like you have to stay excited about what you do. And that's kind of why like I switch gears so much, as much as I love my carpets, like I really found with my colubrids, like that's where my passion is those basic snakes that people buy as their first snake. I love those things. My favorite snakes are the cheapest things in my collection.
Let me put it to you this way: carpets are the kiddie pool, colubrids are the Olympic swimmer.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed pythons and boas a lot more at first, and it was just because I hadn't messed with enough colubrids, and the more you're around them, and the more you mess with them, you're like, wow, these things are pretty cool, and then,
they're great.
The sun is and you can. Him.
Yeah, I'll just live with it for a minute, but yeah, it's it's not like we talked about earlier. It's not like the ball pythons or something like that. You can dive into, and we're all collectors or hoarders or whatever you want to call us. And so with colubrids, you can dive in feet first, and it's not crazy expensive to do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem too, though.
Yeah, it really is. I buy a corn snake at every show because it's like, well, it's $150,
right.
And then pretty soon I'm like, God, it's just look around and like, why is there a tub on the counter over there? Oh yeah, I brought another corn snake home.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you have $150 snakes, and it's like, okay,
and Daytona last year I was like a honey motley, $90. What?
Box it up.
I didn't even think twice. I just handed that man my money. I was like, thanks.
And it's funny because switching
from transaction,
especially you being a chondro guy, but like me being a carpet guy, it was even more different. Or like being a chondro guy, I can only imagine it being night and day, but even being a carpet guy,
it's a much simpler life.
Your carpets,
the life of luxury that I lived.
Your average carpet would go from at least $200 to $500, and that's just a base carpet. Your colubrids, a lot of the colubrids I have went for $75 to $100, and those are my favorite animals, man. Like I love
Montrose was paying you to take them.
No, absolutely not. I definitely have given Montrose a lot of my money because I love the stuff that he produces, but I've gotten a lot of animals from him, and it's been very fun.
Still a chondro guy, and I'm still better than everyone else.
Yeah,
because I'm a chondro guy.
Hold your pinky up while you sip your wine.
I think all of us herping too doesn't help with the colubrid thing, because that's what we've got,
No.
And so it's like
exactly.
and it's it's I only keep really California king snakes. I've got a Zanata, but I don't keep a whole bunch of we don't have a whole bunch of local colubrids, but
Right.
I keep most of them, other than that I got vipers, and they kind of limit what I can do with those. So we're only allowed to have native rattlesnakes and can't breed them and only have 2. And so, that I don't, there's not much far I can go in that world, so it's like, colubrids are an easy, and I can, you kind of like, I don't know, you get, fall in love with the natural history part of it, not like so much in, just the environments that you're in, and then it kind of leads to you keeping those snakes.
I find that stuff fascinating because I think it gives you a bigger view of the species and why they are the way they are.
Yep,
absolutely.
Like, I find that really cool. Like I said, like with Kaufman's video, I thought that was neat. Like, I don't have much, like ball pythons really don't do much for me, but it was really neat to see the habitat, because it was like you were saying, everyone assumed it was like dry grassland, like Southern Africa style habitat, and it's really not. I think it's actually probably closer to what we deal with here in a majority of the states than what they what was originally thought.
Right.
Yep. So. And, it's, we're all kind of part of why we all do this. So once you get to kind of this level, it's just because we enjoy learning, whether whether we like to admit it to ourselves or not. We're giant nerds, and, it's just that there's always another door to unlock with natural history. And, we all keep kind of leaning that way. And it's nice with all the podcasts and stuff now, you don't have to dive into everything yourself. Somebody else can do that deep dive for you, and you can, listen to 2 hours of it.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, we are approaching that 2.5 hour mark. So where, if anybody wants to look at what you're doing, wants to talk to you, wants to find you, where can people talk to you?
Instagram's easiest. I don't do a whole lot on Facebook. My personal Facebook, if you're a serious herper, you can, add me on there. But otherwise, Instagram, Ball or Nothing Pythons, emails, ballernothingpythons@gmail.com. And then, pretty much any of the Northern California shows, I'll be behind a booth somewhere there.
Nice.
You're gonna do any vending in like the Oregon, like I know the Pacific Northwest stuff. Is that far from you?
No, it's not. And I need to kind of put my foot up, just put my toe in the water up there. There's I know, or at least I follow a few of the ball python breeders on Instagram that they're a little more prolific than me, a few of the guys there, but as that diversity develops, and I feel like
it looks like a really fun show to go to, especially that one that Jeff and Kendra have been vending.
Yeah,
that looks like a really good show.
They do a good job putting that show together, and then it's any show that Evergreen Exotics that Shane's at, he brings it, man. He's got all kinds of stuff. He's at the Super Show in January, and it was just his table's crazy.
It's awesome.
Great,
we really appreciate it, man. This was a good episode. I'm really glad we did it. I'm sure it won't be the last.
Right on. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you for joining us.
This episode was brought to you by BlackBoxCages.com, Facebook, Instagram, BlackBoxCages.com.
Best of the best equipment in the hobby. You're missing out if you're not getting cages and racks from them.
And you're getting them quick. Yeah. Why wait indefinitely? Order a cage and know when you're going to get it, not wonder. And
then actually get a response about it if you have a question.
You could get about 1 million black box cages in the same time that you could have a child with other companies. If my kid's hitting their first birthday and I still haven't gotten what I've ordered, I'm going to be upset.
Yeah.
But you don't have to deal with that at Black Box because we have approximately a 2-week lead time right now. So please check that out.
Check them out.
Yes, freight's expensive, but it's expensive for everybody.
You're paying for quality. And that's the thing. They're not even the most expensive business out there. Like, they are very affordable. Shipping sucks.
Some of their stuff even comes assembled.
Yeah. And that makes it even more convenient. But if you're in, within a 4 to 6 hour drive, you can also pick it up. Go pick it up. It's worth the drive.
Gas is expensive, but it's still
Yeah.
ain't that bad.
No, it's not. Me and Justin have made the trek twice now to BlackBox
I enjoy
headquarters. I
our
like the
trips up
drive.
there.
Yeah, it's been fun. So check them out. I will put THP on it. You will not be disappointed with the product.
And hey, if you're ordering online, use the code THN at checkout, get a couple bucks shaved off the top.
Yes, sir. Help you with that shipping.
And then as soon as you do that, you go over to stevesnakeswary.com and you get you some hot sauce
Yes.
because it is delicious.
I will give a discount on any snake to somebody who sends me a video of them licking Steve's Sanctuary hot sauce off a BlackBox rack.
Oh, okay.
I give it 20%.
I was unaware of this.
20%
sure,
discount to anybody who sends
20?
it. Yep.
Gotta be at least 50.
Screw it. I'll do it.
You'll do it yourself and give yourself a discount on your own snake?
Free normal ball python if you send it to me.
You're trying to pawn off Spurge on somebody like that, man.
I just missed mods. I got plenty of normal ball pythons for you. I'll send you some.
There you go. Message Don with a video of you licking Steve Sanctuary hot sauce off a BlackBox track. He'll give you a normal ball python at my expense. How about
Please
that?
don't. If you do it, don't make it sexual. Just do it, just do it normally. Let's not make it weird. Let's just get it over with. We just want proof that you've done it. It doesn't have to be a production.
There you go.
Just I don't know how you would normally lick hot sauce off of a flat surface, but there's a way to do it and a way to not do it. And just make good decisions.
Don't listen to Justin. I want it as nasty as possible. Send it to me.
That's horrible. If you're into that
I'm
kind of
just
thing,
kidding.
brats, go for it.
I'm
But some
just
people have to pay for
kidding.
that kind of stuff.
Exactly. You can do it for free here.
We'll be back for Snakes and Stogies on Monday. I'm not sure if that's the episode where we're going to have a special in-house guest that I will not name.
Oh,
But,
in-house.
yes, in studio, aka in garage.
In garage.
Sitting in that very seat.
You just
I'm gonna get him to sign the seat.
you're just gonna sell my spot. Dang, man.
I'm totally gonna get him to sign the back of that with a Sharpie or something.
That'd be sweet. Now I kind of want to know who it is if you want a signature. Oh wait, I might know who it is.
You don't.
You don't? Oh, well, never mind.
Anyways, we'll be back Monday night at 9. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Don, thanks again.
Yes, thank you, Don.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, man. Great episode. Definitely do it
Morphmarket
again.
community, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely get on there. Post your snakes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
See y'all
All right.
later. Have a good
Thank
evening.
y'all.
All right, guys.